secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, what political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. At every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Political cow, political cow. Political cow, political cow. The beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Political cow. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. And in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. Truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise.
Well, we're back. I just want to kick it off by saying thank you to everybody who has subscribed. I think we're well on our way to over 3,200 subs just in the last 28 days. Absolutely remarkable. I appreciate everybody that's taken apart, joined in with cow politics. What's that about? I don't know. Let the community define it here, but we've got quite a few things going on. You see the news ticker at the bottom, ranging from tariffs that are being implemented by Trump, executive orders signed today, took questions on that. A rare occurrence. We haven't seen that recently in the past 4 years. Executive orders being signed and actually speaking about what those executive orders entail. What a concept, right? Usually there's a foggy look, pens being handed out to people who aren't there. We could go on, but taking questions, reaffirming positions, standing on principle. And if something doesn't seem to be working, we'll change gears. We'll move. We'll do something different. Everybody's in lockstep. This 4 years is going to be 4 years of momentum. It's going to be 4 years of a lot of energy and a lot of progress. So again, I appreciate everybody who has subscribed, contributed to the community here. It's been really amazing to take part in it. I do want to also highlight, excuse me, we do have a live guest line open. So if at any point, as we're doing the analysis and talking through commentary on different things that we're going to look at here. You want to chime in, not just on chat? I mean, please do. The chat's been very lively and phenomenal. But click through the link. It'll just give you a little window to, you don't have to enable the video. It's no big deal, but you'll be able to kind of call in live and share your opinion. I'm not after, doing the gotcha politics and just kind of, trapping people or whatever. I would like to hear a variety of opinions. Diversity of thought, I think, is important. And I might ask a question or two. You can ask me a question. Doesn't matter, but we can have some civil discourse. And I think that's fine. That would be something of interest, something to promote new as we enter into the future here. Silver already got a nice comment here. Appreciate you chiming in. Trump's tariffs will raise retail prices for all of the United States. The countries being hit with tariffs will either pass those costs on to us or no longer sell to us. Interesting, though, with Canada. And I appreciate the remark. That's a talking point that you'll see. The last Karoline that, the last Trump that, some of the content that we'll go through. When you are, like, say, in the case of Mexico, you comprise 30% of that country's gross domestic product. 30% of their GDP is dependent on trade with the United States. Massive tariffs like that. Who's gonna say uncle first in that scenario? I mean, Mexico amounts to less than 1% for us. In terms of GDP, a third of their economy runs through us. If it was not for the United States, a third of their economy would disappear. So just speaking tactically, they will not. You could talk a big game now, but once their products are no longer being purchased, and I mean, what is it? What are those products, right? Maybe I'll do that. I'll make a note. We'll take a look at, maybe one country at a time, those specific tariffs that are being applied, what industries they're impacting, and what that means to Mexico, what it means to the United States. So, for example, if it's certain textiles, certain products that are being made there that will get hit with that tariff, a lot of these massive corporations have robust supply chains, and at the push of a button, they just say, "Hey, Vietnam, pick up the slack. We're not going to produce this product in Mexico anymore for the immediate future." The factories in Vietnam will double down, twice the output, phenomenal quality. American consumer doesn't feel it, but who gets hit with it? Same runs with other countries. I don't know about dairy though, so I think we get a good bit of that from Canada. I don't know what that scenario looks like, but it's not a simple apple, A to B type scenario with all of these things that are unfolding, and we'll see. Maybe I just need a half gallon of milk. Maybe I don't need a whole gallon. But at the end of the day, which that shrinkflation has been on us for a while. I think I opened a bag of chips here in the last 4 years, and there's like 3 chips in it. $7 or something. I don't know. Ridiculous. So what's happened? I eat less chips. How about that? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Let's see. Trump doesn't understand tariffs. Silver. I appreciate your comment, Silver. Doesn't understand tariffs are bad things. Tariffs are, the purpose is to drive behavior. You want to implement these type of things to drive behaviors, right? And in this case, bring people back to the negotiating table. We are not okay with the terms in which the system has been set up for us. We don't stand to benefit as a country, as a people. So how do you bring people back into the mix? We'll take a look at one more, and then we'll jump into the content I got here. Josh, Canada's import-export runs mostly through our ports. There you go. So that sounds like a very awful scenario for Canada. So dependent on their products, imports, exports running through us. What is it at the root of it? So I think that's good research to do. I'll work on that. Maybe we'll hit Canada first, see what it is that is specifically at issue. They'll touch on it here, right? I mean, at a high level, you want the best doggone deal for the United States and the people of the United States possible. That's the bottom line. And I don't know if you can see my hat right now. It's evening. It's darked out, but that's part of making America great. So appreciate the comments. Well, looks like we got one more. Our regulations need to be regulated. Excuse me. This lingering cough's killing me, guys. Our regulators need to be regulated. Excuse me. We could have a lot more livestock and dairy. There you go, right? There's nuance. I don't know if it's a whole lot of nuance, but that's probably more reality talking there that Josh is bringing to the table. I appreciate that. Why not be more self-sufficient in some of these critical areas? Why do we need to import some of these products? Self-sufficiency is a good thing. And that's the first thing that we're going to touch on here. So let me get over to a different view. Oh, what happened? Hey, let me get that. Hide that. There we go. Boom. All right. That's not fitting on the screen as I would like it to. Okay, a little bit better. So go to politicalcow.com. I have all my stream notes published. I don't know why it says 42. This is episode 43. 43 episodes. It's unbelievable. Only been doing this through the YouTube for a couple of months here now. But stream notes are published there. So the video, just some of the general notes that I have, it's not terribly sophisticated. It's just all there as a point of reference. I had some good feedback early on asking where I get some of the stuff I'm talking about. So I try to publish it there in the stream notes. Mostly videos, some tweets, articles, so forth. And a lot of it, as you see on the screen there, is sourced from Ground News, which actually, if you do click in the bio and go through our affiliate link there, it's 40% off right now. It's actually not 50, or excuse me, 15. It's 40. All right, so let's jump into it here. The former, and focusing in on tariffs, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Former president cough is getting me. Former president of Kenya gave a talk recently that's kind of making waves. It's just been in the last day, and I think this is a very eye-opening and good point that he's making. That people need to come to terms with reality. That not just we, but everybody needs to work towards this. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Did I get the wrong link? Bear with me, guys. Gotta find the right link here. How did I get to the wrong page here? There we go. Yeah, guys. Boom. Boom.
Lamenting U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to freeze foreign aid, including the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief. Speaking at the East African Region Global Health Security Summit in Mombasa, Kenyatta urged leaders to shift from dependency and instead focus on self-sufficiency. He questioned why African nations should expect U.S. support when they do not contribute to its tax system.
I saw some people the other day crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bwana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves? Instead of crying, tujiulize, what are we going to do? Haya, ametoa hiyo pesa, sasa tutafanya namna gani jameni? What are we going to do? Yeah? To support ourselves. Because nobody is going to continue holding out a hand there to give you. It is time for us to use our resources for the right things. We are the ones who are using them for the wrong things.
Interesting commentary. So I had the wrong video linked here. I'll have to update it on the stream notes, but that was it. The former Kenyan president. We are using our resources for the wrong things. It's time that we work to help ourselves become self-sufficient. I don't see why that's such a negative message. And I think it's a fundamental mindset shift that differentiates the liberal from conservative viewpoints here, right? Anyway, interesting that there's leaders out there that are coming up outside of the United States and pushing for the same exact, approach for their countries. Like, let's just become more self-sufficient. Like, why have we been getting relaxed and just dependent? Dependency is not a good idea long term. Josh goes in the comment, voted yes on the tariff question. It's a tool for negotiations. Enemies lie, we lie to them, we fund them, they take advantage of us, form a toxic debate. Yeah, and this dynamic too has been developed for decades, if not a century now, where our funding of a multitude of other countries, has it led us at this point in time? Maybe it served a purpose. Maybe it does serve a purpose, but we need to be able to measure when that purpose has been met. And for anybody else's benefit, are we really helping them by creating this dependence? Right. So I'm going to go first to Trump's comments on his executive orders. Then we'll listen into the daily briefing from Karoline Leavitt. And if you haven't heard her yet, unbelievable. She's 27. I can't believe it. It's 27, and it's like she's running circles around the media right now. Phenomenal effort there. Another star in the Republican Party that's going to be there for quite some time, well into the future here.
C-SPAN is not federally funded. It's thanks to the...
All right, and thank you, C-SPAN, for all the White House coverage you do provide.
That we need to manage smartly, sustainably,
I don't know who Mr. Brownie is, but let's get to Trump.
People.
Mr. President, is there anything China, Canada, and Mexico can do tonight to forestall your implementation of tariffs tomorrow?
No, nothing. Not right now, no.
Not a negotiating tool?
No, it's not. No, it's a pure economic. We have big deficits with, as you know, with all three of them. And in one case, they're sending massive amounts of fentanyl, killing hundreds of thousands of people a year with the fentanyl. And in the other two cases, they're making it possible for this poison to get in, number one. And number two, we have big deficits, and it's something we're doing. And we'll possibly very substantially increase it. We're not. We'll see how it is. But it's a lot of money coming to the United States. As you know, we have about a $200 billion deficit with Canada, getting close to $200 billion. They've treated us very unfairly. And I say, why should we be subsidizing Canada? It's wonderful. I have so many friends in Canada. It's a great place.
Is there a concession
But
you're looking for, sir?
no, we're not looking for a concession. And we'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens. And with Mexico, it's the same thing. We have a $250 billion deficit, and we have a lot of people coming into the border, and now we've largely stopped that, but we've stopped that ourselves. I think they've done a fantastic job. You've seen the numbers, they've dropped to almost zero. But we've suffered under the past administration for years and years. We've suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico, and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada, and China makes the fentanyl. China makes the fentanyl, gives it to Mexico, puts it through Canada, puts it through different places, mostly Mexico, but also a lot through Canada. And so all three haven't treated us very well.
Sir, can I ask you about your meeting with NVIDIA? What did you talk about, and do you think you need to ban more of the chips that they're selling to China?
Well, he's a great gentleman, and I had...
So the behavior thing they were talking about, and good commentary there, Josh, too. Mentioned fentanyl, mentioned a lot of things that are connected here, right? The world operates as a very complex system, and you can't just take, these one-off actions and hope that it fixes everything, right? This is a systemic approach to resolving a number of issues. Kash Patel approved as getting confirmed as FBI director. There's imperatives that he has that tie in directly to this, that tie into directly around DHS. So this is all part of a larger system, and I mean, not to mention the economic benefits that they're after here as well for the United States.
Met him.
But it sounds like they're jumping into other topics as well, not just hitting them up with tariff questions.
He's the biggest in the world in terms of chips, and I can't say what's going to happen with it. We had a meeting, it was a good meeting, but eventually we're going to put tariffs on chips. We're going to put tariffs on oil and gas. That'll happen fairly soon. I think around the 18th of February. And we're going to put a lot of tariffs on steel. We already have tariffs on steel, and we've saved our steel industry, but that was relatively small compared to what it'll be. But we're going to be putting tariffs on steel and aluminum and ultimately copper. Copper will take a little bit longer, and that'll happen pretty quickly. It'll mean it'll be a great boost for our steel industry. It'll make our steel industry very strong. If I didn't put the tariffs on years ago on steel, which actually Biden left because there was so much money that they couldn't do anything about it, I think we would have lost. We wouldn't have one steel mill in this country if I didn't do that. We saved the steel industry. So it was an honor to do it, and I think the people that love me most in the whole world are people that make steel. But we're going to be putting sometime this month, next month, we're going to be putting tariffs on steel and aluminum. And we'll give you an announcement as to what the exact date is. But it'll be a tremendous amount of money for our country, a tremendous amount. These are big numbers. And in addition to that, and you see the power of the tariff. I mean, the tariff is good. And nobody can compete with us because we have by far the biggest piggy bank. And so that'll take place very quickly. But also we'll be doing pharmaceuticals. And to bring our industry back, we want to bring pharmaceuticals back to the country. And the way you bring it back to the country is by putting up a wall, and the wall is a tariff wall. We were the richest country in the world. We were at our richest from 1870 to 1913. That's when we were a tariff country. And then they went to an income tax concept, and you know, how did that work out? It's fine. I mean, it's okay, but would have been very much better. So we'll be doing pharmaceuticals, importantly, and drugs, medicines, etc., all forms of medicine and pharmaceuticals. And we'll be doing, very importantly, steel, and we'll also be doing chips and things associated with chips.
And sir, what do you plan on talking with the Japanese Prime Minister about next Friday when you all meet?
Well, he's coming in, next week. I don't know who he is for a meeting, and I have great respect for Japan. I like Japan. Prime Minister Abe was a very close friend of mine. What happened to him was so sad, one of the saddest days. But they're coming in to speak to me, and I look forward to it.
Mr. President, on the crash, do you have any concerns that your commentary about things you have described as common sense or your observations could in any way interfere with the thorough investigation of the crash?
No, I think they'll do an investigation. It'll probably come out the way I said it. I like to put it up front. I'm so tired of listening to things happen to our country, and then people say, we'll do an investigation, and 3 years later they come out with a report that nobody looks at. Especially, not in all cases can you do that, but in this case, you know, you had a helicopter that was, the Black Hawk was too high. It was above the 200 limit by double. Shouldn't have been there. And there were some other mistakes made too, and I pointed them out also, and I was right on all of it. But they'll still do an investigation just to check it out. But I think that's what you're doing.
Chief, are you at all concerned about opining about the Army and the conduct of that aircraft when you are Commander-in-Chief and these are the people who report to you?
No.
And there's an investigation on that?
This was all caused by bad rules, regulations, and other things by Biden, the Biden administration. And when you look at the way they ran things, in fact, if you look, we hired, one of the first things I told them to do is to get talented people in those beautiful towers overlooking runways. You better get them in there fast because we don't have people there that are qualified. And you knew that because planes were landing very, very late. They were circling all over the place. We had people that didn't know what the hell they were doing. And if you look, excuse me.
And there are other
excuse me. They We have to have the best people, the smartest people, the sharpest people as control tower experts. And that's what they have to be. They have to be experts, and they have to be very smart. And we didn't have our best. And if you read the quote that I read yesterday at the news conference, it talked about people that were psychologically injured were okay, and people that had lots of problems were okay. I'd read it again if you'd like me to, but I don't think I have to waste your time.
Concerned, though, sir, with planes in the air all around the country, people relying on that as safety? Are you suggesting there's an ongoing risk?
No, I think there's very little risk, but I think that we have to make sure that this never happens again. Very, very little risk. And we're taking actions that this can't happen again. The helicopter, as you know, was out of its zone. Shouldn't have been out of its zone. It was at the same height as the airplane. Now, the airplane was coming down on its track.
I'll just jump in here as a quick analysis, which I'm sure everybody's already got on their mind, that he's talking about temperament, he's talking about competency, which I think are things that we should always focus in on, not necessarily some of the other identity aspects that get thrown in the mix, especially in these types of roles, right? That's all he's saying. But if you watch social media up and down, they're focused so much on the identity piece and reiterating old lines that were used 4 years ago, 6 years ago that completely fell flat during the election cycle. Nobody's buying into that anymore. I think this is one of the clearest examples of where if you want to make a point of saying we need to have the best and brightest, not suggesting anything else happen, but just reinforcing that with this scenario, I think it works and it plays well with people. Safety is something that people won't want to compromise on. Let's see. We got Una King here as a comment. Let's see. Dude wants to talk qualified. Wow, his appointees are the most unqualified people in such important positions. Call in, Una. What do you think the unqualified aspects are? Because to me, I always go back to Obama. What qualified him to be president? Because in a lot of cases, like with Hegseth, they were so critical of him. Like, have you ever led an agency that has millions of employees? Have you ever led somebody or something that's had hundreds of billions of budget? And they go down the list of things. And if you realistically look at that, you've basically narrowed your search down to like 3 people on earth, like the CEO of Apple, right? This got something of that scale, NVIDIA, so forth. So what is it that actually qualifies somebody? Because Obama didn't lead anything. He wasn't a leader of anything prior to becoming president. You're really not leading anything when you're a senator. You have staff who read things and brief you, but what are you doing exactly, right? And so that's not the defining quality, because you can disagree with, which as I do, with a lot of things that Obama said, did, implemented, but he was able to execute the role perfectly. He had the aptitude for it, right? His positions and his thought process were not aligned with how I would have wanted it to be done, but that's not the question here. Is he qualified, or excuse me, did he have the capacity to take on such a role? And he did, and he demonstrated it. And he was able to communicate well and connect with people. You go down the list of things. So there's something different here that we need to be able to kind of hone in on, right? The qualification of somebody, them being able to actually take on a role and execute it is something very different than, what Rachel Maddow tells you, that, oh, this person has never led an agency that has a $600 billion budget, which, how many corporations around the world have a $6 billion budget, right? I mean, you're talking a handful, right? And so then if you look at the executives, again, you're leaving yourself with just a handful of people, in which case none of them have potentially any military experience. So there you go, right? Justin Eubanks, proper vocabulary, maybe. Yeah, I agree. Those reporters are just, I don't know why they're not using good vocabulary. So good observation, Justin. The reporters use better vocabulary when addressing the president. All right, let's keep going.
It was perfect. It was in perfect shape coming down, and something was in its way. You can't let that happen, and it won't be happening again. And this was all because of weak rules in the Biden administration. And we're just not going to let that kind of thing happen again. And again, I could wait and I could, give a report in 2 years like they always do. And sometimes it's obvious. In this case, to me, it was very obvious. And I think I've been proven to be very correct. Yeah.
Mr. President, what do you expect from your meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu next week?
I expect a lot of good things. From all meetings, I expect good things. Marco Rubio, as you know, is going to make a tour of various countries in South America. He's going to be meeting in Panama, where Panama's treated us very badly. They gave him, rather foolishly, a thing called the Panama Canal, the most expensive project we ever built, if you look at today's numbers. Most expensive ever built. We lost 38,000 men. In that case, all men, just about all men. 38,000 to the mosquito, to malaria and various other problems that you get from jungles. It was a tremendously...
it's so humorous to me. We lost 38,000, and then he'll pause, to the mosquito. It's just, I'm sorry. It's sometimes it's like I don't want to call it a stand-up routine, but it just comes across humorous to me.
Costly event. We built the Panama Canal 110 years ago. Think of it, the most expensive development we ever did, and really one of the wonders of the world, one of the great wonders of the world. And we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama. And Panama's been ripping down all the China language signs. They've been working like mad to try, but about 70% of the signs were up and they were written in Chinese, and that's not the deal. So we're going to take it back. They've already offered to do many things, but we think it's appropriate that we take it back. They've totally violated the agreement. We have an agreement. They violated the agreement, and Marco Rubio's going over there to talk to the gentleman that's in charge.
Mr. Gaza, do you still think it's a good idea for Jordan and Egypt to be taking in Palestinians when they reject the idea and the Palestinians who are living now in Egypt?
I think Jordan will take people from Gaza. And I think Egypt will take them also. I mean, I heard somebody said they're not going to, but I think they will. I feel confident they will.
Mr. President, will tomorrow's tariffs...
Yeah, it's funny when he says stuff like that. Like, I think they will. I feel confident they will. He's got something working in the background. There's a deal in the works. You know what I'm saying?
Include oil.
What?
Will tomorrow's tariffs be inclusive of Canadian crude?
I'm probably going to reduce the tariff a little bit on that. We think we're going to bring it down to 10% on the oil. So it's 25% on the Canada side.
Mr. President, are these tariffs stacking on top of already existing tariffs? Or
Yes,
this will be the
on top of whatever may be existing. Yeah.
Mr.
Mr. President, ask you a question about Venezuela. Rick Cornell was seen on state TV shaking hands with President Maduro. Is there any concern that that might lend legitimacy to the Maduro administration?
No, we want to do something with Venezuela. I've been a very big opponent of Venezuela and Maduro. They've treated us not so good, but they've treated, more importantly, the Venezuelan people very badly. We have tremendous Venezuelan population. I got 92% of the vote, the Venezuelan vote. Now we want to see what we can do to get people back in their homeland safe and free and all. He's meeting with a lot of different people, but we are for the people of Venezuela. We're for the Venezuelan Americans. If you look at it, we have them all in Florida, right around the Doral area. That's really, they call it Little Venezuela, right? And they voted for me close to 100%. So we'll see what we can do to straighten out the situation in Venezuela. Venezuela has been very unfortunate. I was very surprised when I saw that Biden agreed to buy a lot of oil from Venezuela, because Venezuela was just about finished, the dictator. And when that happened, it brought him back to life. You know, Biden.
All right, let's look at some interesting comments here that are coming up, and I appreciate you guys contributing here to the mix. My AI is going. Hold on, AI. Hold on a second. Or actually, maybe I'll ask you a question from the live chat here. Can you tell the folks what the Holly Smoot tariffs are?
protectionist trade policies in the United States, raising tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. This act is often blamed for worsening the Great Depression by stifling international trade and causing retaliatory tariffs from other countries. Quite a historical moment in the realm of economics.
Can you describe the scenario that the United States was in at that period of time compared to right now? Are there parallels?
Sure, the United States in the late 1920s was thriving economically during the Roaring Twenties, marked by consumerism, technological advances, and stock market booms. However, it all came crashing down with the stock market crash of 1929, leading to the Great Depression. High unemployment, bank failures, and severe economic hardship ensued. Comparatively, today's U.S. economy is more robust, with advanced safety nets, financial regulations, and global trade systems. While challenges like economic recession still occur, the scale and impact are better managed. The COVID-19 pandemic showed how economic systems can be disrupted, yet the recovery mechanisms are faster due to lessons learned from the past.
Wow. Okay. That was a pretty robust answer. Thank you, AI. There's, I guess you could correlate the two things, but it discounts, as AI was pointing out there, all the safety nets and everything else that's a little bit more sophisticated now. Not to say that anything's perfect, but the key is to shift and react as new information comes in, which I feel that we're more in a better position to do that at this point. All right, Una King. Did you listen to the hearings on Hegseth, Gabbard, Cash Patel? Gabbard and Cash, no. I will be listening to those. Hegseth, yes. Very well done there. Rather than answer questions that they I guess said no recollection of things that they wrote 6 months ago, lying in failing health. Yeah, so Hegseth had to kind of backtrack some of his comments on women in the military. So yeah, that did happen. I don't know about the other two. I haven't watched them yet. All right, let's keep going with Senor Trump here. Good comments coming out. Was supposed to be focused on the executive orders that he's about to be, signing here, but a lot of topics, a lot of things going on. So media will take any opportunity to throw things at him.
Went out and they buy millions
Somebody needs to turn their phone off in there.
of oil. I say, what's that all about? So we're not going to let that stupid stuff happen. So we'll see what happens. We're not happy with Venezuela. We don't like the way they've treated the Venezuelans at all.
Mr. President, there have been some warnings or messages that government websites will be shut down this evening to scrub them of DEI content. Can you confirm if that's accurate?
Shut down?
Government websites, will be shut down this evening to scrub them of DEI content. Can you confirm whether that's accurate and if there are any concerns?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. DEI would have ruined our country, and now it's dead. I think DEI is dead, so if they want to scrub the websites, that's okay with me. But I can't tell you. I guess probably certain people handle it certain ways. But I'll tell you who's very happy about it: the military. The real leaders, the real generals in the military, they're very happy about it. Doug is very happy about it. He's got a big...
So having some comments in here in the chat of MAGA is going to get what they asked for. Depression is on the way. It's interesting that there's acknowledgement of financial crises that are looming when maybe 2 months ago it was like, no, stock market's great, everything's great. Don't say anything about the economy. Stock market is not a good indication of how Main Street is doing. People completely ignored household surveys, debt levels on average for household credit. When you start looking at those individual or family-based statistics, by and large, let's just say the lower 90% of the country is not in the greatest condition at this point in time. Surveys from Redfin, I keep going back to that one because that one's the most shocking one to me. That it's probably been out for about a year now, but during the Biden-Harris administration, the survey came out where half of the respondents, and again, Redfin is a real estate aggregating service, so they do a lot of real estate household type surveys like this. half of their respondents said that they struggle to pay their mortgage on a month-to-month basis. And a quarter of them skip meals in order to make ends meet for basic services. That's shocking to me, right? And that speaks at the same time, 25% of people skip meals, half struggle to pay rent, and yet the elites in Washington are saying, hey, look, the stock market, everything's great. Pay no attention to what's going on in your neighborhood. Stock market's great, so you're winning, right? Kind of like the bandwagon effect when everybody was a Chicago Bulls fan in the 90s. So it's interesting now that all of a sudden people are calling out for a looming economic disaster when this has been in the works for quite some time. They're calling out inflation as well, saying that, oh, it's, prices are going up. Prices never went down, friends. Unfortunately, they went up massively because of all the money printing. And then the Democrats said, oh, look, we brought inflation down to 2%. All that really means is the pace or how quickly prices are increasing. The rate of increase has slowed down. So instead of it going up 100 miles an hour, it's going up 25 miles an hour now, right? And if you're following me, they're 2.5% or whatever with the 25, but it's going up still. It's still moving forward. It hasn't gone back, and the reality is it won't go back. Some of the commodity-based stuff or the food type items, they'll sway because that's the way those commodity markets work. But by and large, prices are not going back down. The solution that was being offered, what was in front of us, is do we need to change the system so that we can promote wage growth, get things right for individuals, put money back in the hands of individuals? Or do we need to take, as a government, allow the government to take more and decide who gets a stipend every month? That was what was in front of us. And the stipend, we knew modern monetary theory would not thrive. In fact, I'll ask AI a little bit later to give a synopsis on that. But that's what the election was all about. And now all of a sudden, everybody's acting like they're a genius, calling out the looming economic disaster that we're in better hands to handle than we were not too long ago. I can't even imagine what Kamala Harris would have done. I was at her rally when she came through Houston. Absolute disaster. People were waiting out there for 3-4 hours. She came and, spoke for me like 10-12 minutes. Beyonce, spoke for like 5 minutes, got her $5 million a minute. How disconnected from reality is that? How ivory tower is that, right? All right, let's get back to Senor Trump here.
Big group of people that are going to be working for him are really starting right now. He just got signed up, and they're very happy about it. He had a lot of DEI. Everybody did, but he has not been a fan. It was really hurting our country badly. It's costing a lot of money too. Do you see the kind of money we're talking about? Hundreds of millions of dollars for nonsense. Now we have our country back now. Our country is back, and it's a nice thing to say. I've never seen such love. I've never had anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. People are coming up, sir, thank you for bringing our country back. We were losing our country, and I think we're stronger now than we've been in many, many decades.
Can you give an update on your call with Vladimir Putin?
Well, we'll be speaking. We'll be speaking, and I think we'll perhaps do something that'll be significant. We want to end that war. That war would have never started if I was president, and we want to end that war. That war is a horrible war. Millions of young people are being killed, mostly on the lines now, mostly soldiers. But the cities have been largely destroyed, many of them. They're like demolition sites. But the soldiers are just shooting at each other. It's a very flat land. I said this the last time, very, very flat land. The only place that a bullet stops is when it hits a person. And they're hitting a lot of people. They're hitting a lot of soldiers, but on both sides.
Hey, folks, a lot of strong opinions being expressed in the chat. I appreciate that, guys. Hit the link. The pinned chat has a link to dial in live as a guest. It's in the description. It's I'll put it up on my link tree as well. So the link will be in the bio in just a moment here. But call in, guys. Just go.politicalcow.com/live. Live needs a capital L, and that'll take you to the guest call-in link. Just interested to hear people's opinions, and I'm not going to try and get you. you want to express your thoughts, by all means. I may ask a few questions or just offer a data point. But it's so. I mean, for example, on offering a data point, right? Apparently, 80 million morons in America. Actually, I don't know if I have any data points for that. I just have laugh. Raj, okay, very funny, Raj, very funny. Oh boy, already broke his oath to the Constitution. 14th Amendment attack. The key piece of language, and Pokemon, I think I'm saying it right. Pokemon there. The key language in there is for people that are subject to the jurisdiction of, or something to that effect. So, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of, does the rest of the provisions in the amendment really apply to you or your children? I don't know.
I think Russia would probably say close to 800,000, and Ukraine 600,000 or 700,000, and it's just a senseless situation, and it's got to stop. So whatever I can do to stop it, and we are having discussions. Yes.
Ongoing, already scheduled, and ongoing.
Already talking. Yes.
So you've already spoken to Vladimir Putin.
I don't want to say that, but we are having very serious discussions about.
You don't want to?
We are. Well, I just don't want to say that. We're having very serious discussions about that war, trying to get it ended.
With Russia?
With Russia, yeah.
At the Department of Justice and the FBI, there are a number of high-level people who are being asked to resign or are being told they are going to be fired. Did you specifically request any actions at the Bureau or DOJ with respect to those employees?
No, but we have some very bad people over there. It was weaponized at a level that nobody's ever seen before. They came after a lot of people, like me, but they came after a lot of people. No, I wasn't involved in it. I'll have to see what is exactly going on after this is finished. But if they fired some people over there, that's a good thing, because they were very bad. They were very corrupt people, very corrupt, and they hurt our country very badly with the weaponization. They used the Justice Department to go after their political opponent, which in itself is illegal. And obviously it didn't work.
Are you going to impose tariff on the European Union?
What does that mean?
Are you going to impose tariff too on the European Union, like you are going to do for Mexico and Canada?
Well, you're asking me a question, because I'm sure you didn't hear. Am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union? Do you want the truthful answer, or should I give you a political answer? Absolutely.
Another moment of brilliance. So again, it's a different Trump this go round, not pulling any punches. There is no time to waste. He's got 4 years, and he's going to fix it. And every day, there's going to be decisions made. There's going to be actions taken. And it's like Elon's statement. What have you accomplished this week? It's going to be a continuous reflection. I reflect on that too. And I got to be honest. Sometimes, like this last week, I'm shaking my head and I'm frustrated because I don't feel like I accomplished enough. I don't feel like I accomplished enough this week. And we just got to reflect, start again next week, and do better, right? That's what he's promoting. And I think that's the mindset that has used to be prevalent in the country. I don't know what happened. How do we get so lax, right? Why is it so difficult to show up in the office? I don't know. A lot of things require it for the position, and I'm referencing the requirements they're putting back on federal workers, right? I don't understand,
Absolutely. The European Union has treated us so terribly.
You promised Americans to try to reduce costs, and so many of the products would be tariffed when they come into the country. The outgoing country is not paying the tariff. The buyers in the United States pay that, and then that's passed on to consumers in most instances.
Sometimes.
How would you expect to have prices come down if you have such a broad plan for tariffs? And what do you say to the voters who want to see you reduce everyday costs?
Well, let me just tell you that I got elected for a lot of reasons. Number one was the border. Number two was inflation, because I had almost no inflation. And yet I charged hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs to countries. And think of it, I had almost no inflation and took in $600 billion of money from other countries. And tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. They cause big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that. I had that when I negotiated some of the good deals for the farmers, and unfortunately those deals have been led astray by Biden and his people because they didn't enforce the deals. We have a deal with China, which is phenomenal for the farmers, but there was nobody to enforce it in the Biden administration. They let them get away with murder. So that's another thing we're going to be bringing. They committed. Wait a minute. They committed to buying $50 billion worth of farm product, and they did it when I was president. And as soon as I left, they stopped doing it.
All right, Charles, you should dial in, my friend. You got a lot of thoughts on this stuff. I appreciate you sharing it. Heritage Foundation wrote his agenda. They did not. He had Agenda 47 out there. A lot of detail during the campaign when Biden had absolutely zero on his website. And trust me, I was there checking daily. Zero on issues. I think at one point he had 3 things that he ranted about, but there was nothing really from a policy standpoint as to, these are the goals I'm looking to achieve if you elect me again. So please elect me. Nothing like that. But Trump had Agenda 47, YouTube videos, high-level descriptions at length. Yes, they were concepts. I'll say that because probably somebody will get triggered over that. But there's a lot of content on that. And it didn't change on the Democrat side till Kamala came into office. And, it takes a little bit of time to pull things together from that disaster of a campaign. And I think within a week and a half or so, she put her positions out there. So acknowledgement and recognition to her for getting some stuff out there. But Agenda 47 is what he was all about, the Heritage Foundation stuff, which, I actually do have a problem with those types of academic exercises, like let's go lock ourselves into a room for 6 months and write a thesis or a dossier on something that no one's going to read except for the media when they want to try to pin somebody on it. I don't know. I don't understand.
Because there was nobody in Biden to enforce it. But the tariffs are going to make us very rich and very strong, and we're going to treat other countries very fairly. But if you think about it, other countries charge us tariffs. We don't charge them tariffs, and it's about time that changes.
Sir, are you concerned about the market reaction around tariffs?
No, no. Tariffs, the word tariff is a very misunderstood word. You've heard me say, I say it kiddingly, but it's one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary. It really is. And we've been taken advantage of because others have charged us VATs. As an example, the European Union charges us 20% plus a VAT tax, called a VAT tax, very similar. And it costs us an absolute fortune. We are treated so badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take almost anything. And we have a tremendous deficit with the European Union. So we'll be doing something very substantial with the European Union. We're going to bring the level up to...
Interesting commentary here that's going on regarding the rich, taxing the rich and so forth. I appreciate the feedback. Keep it going, guys. Oh, I got to take a call. We'll keep it going, guys. We'll get the video going. I'll be back in a second.
Where it should be. And if you think of the European Union, then you go to NATO, it's largely the same group of countries. Until I came along, we were paying almost 100% of NATO only to get bad trade deals. And now it's been evened out, but very unfair having to do, it was evened out pretty good. Actually, I did a good job. They paid $440 billion if you look at the Secretary General's report, and he was here recently and he said that. He said one of the most amazing things I've ever seen is what President Trump was able to do with these countries of Europe, of which he was in charge of them, but he couldn't get them to pay. I went over, I said, you got to pay, and if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. It's very simple. But very unfair is with Ukraine because we're in for $300 billion plus, and they're in probably for $100 billion. There's a $200 billion difference, and they need it more than we do. We have an ocean in between. They don't. And so they're going to have to step it up a little bit.
With efforts to reduce the federal workforce, whether it's offering what we call the buyout package or other efforts. Do you have any concerns that there will be employees broadly across the federal government who might take that up? And they're a part of the many different ways that agencies protect the public, from food inspections, to water safety, to
I know, but everybody's replaceable, and we'll get very good people to replace them if it turns out to be more than we thought. It could be a lot, it could be a little, we don't know, but we'd love to have them leave. We're trying to remember this. We want them to go into the private sector. It's our dream to have everybody almost working in the private sector, not in the public sector. We have many people, very few people came to work. They were, it started more or less with COVID, but actually even before COVID. But it started with the COVID. They didn't come back. And then Biden let them get away with murder. And we had a federal workforce, like 4% coming into the office. And that just doesn't work. People can say it does, but it doesn't work. You have to be unified in a group in the office. It's just, it was crazy. You don't know what they're doing. And then at some point we may ask them to certify that they didn't have two jobs, meaning were they really getting a check from us, the government, and then were they also working a second job and a third job and, on government time? And many of them will say that they did, which is not legal, but it's a problem. It's a problem. No, we want to get that out. We want to clean it out. People have been trying to reduce federal government now for 40 years, 45 years, and they haven't been able to do it. And this is a way of doing it, I think, very nicely. It's sort of a buyout, too. I think we're treating people very good. But people don't come to the office, they won't have a job starting on that very special date. So we'll see how that works out. I mean, nobody knows how that's going to turn out. Everybody might show up to the office, and maybe a large number won't show up. But if they don't show up, we've accomplished a very serious goal. We're trying to reduce government.
Does Mr. Musk or any of those associated with your DOGE do they have any direct access through the government systems to how money is dispersed?
No, nothing. No, they are. This has nothing to do also with the federal cutting. With this federal cutting, this is very separate. This is if you don't show up, you don't get paid. But DOGE, I think, great progress has been made. We're talking about cutting over $1 trillion of waste. We're talking about waste. We're not talking about we're going to love and cherish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're not going to do anything with that other than if we can find some abuse or waste, we'll do something, but the people won't be affected. It'll only be more effective and better. And our country, as our country gets richer, the people on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those people are going to be more secure. If Biden had gotten elected, Social Security was going to fail because the country was failing. It was going to fail. The country was going to fail. And therefore, the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all of the other things that you may get would not be able to be paid. Our country's getting very strong, and you see it. I think more progress has been made in the last 2 or 3 weeks than has been made in the last 4 years. I think not only has more progress been made in the last 4 years, it's, I'll call it deprogress. We went way backward as a country in so many different ways, from woke to all of the other things that took place that were so bad. You look at Afghanistan, how embarrassing that was. I think Afghanistan really started the problem with Russia and Ukraine. When Putin looked over and he saw how incompetently that was handled, I was getting out, but I was going to keep Bagram. Right now, China has Bagram. I was going to keep one of the biggest air bases in the world. They left it. But other than Bagram, I was going to get out. And I wasn't keeping Bagram for Afghanistan. I was keeping it for China because it's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. And we were keeping it. So we have a lot of great things happening in our country, and we appreciate that you're here. And I'm really thrilled about Doug, and I'm really thrilled about his friend, Chris Wright, who's a legend in the oil business, right? They keep telling me, Catherine, he's like a legend, and he's a legend too in a lot of businesses. And we have an amazing group of people working with us. There's a man behind me who became a tremendous success. He was not a wealthy man. He didn't start off a wealthy man, and he ended up a wealthy man. And that's a great talent, and he's willing to sacrifice so much and to put it to work for our country. Watch the job he does on the interior. but in particular on really making our country very, very wealthy by utilizing it properly. And at the same time, environmentally, he does it he's very much an environmentalist. He's going to do it very carefully and very painstakingly good. But you just watch what happens. And working with the Department of Energy, where his compatriot, his friend, and also considered the most talented man in the oil business, is the head of the Department of Energy, and they work together. It's almost like a partnership. It really is a partnership. And watch what that does for our country. It'll be a fantastic thing to see. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Fred. Let's go. Let's do this now.
Man, somebody sounds like they're growling in the background. What was that? Listen, hold on. Listen, someone's like, "Rawr, rawr." Maybe they were meowing. I don't know. Had a little bit too much whey in their diet there. Anyway, funny. I see in the chat here, folks are saying that he's doing a word salad. Let me bring this up here. Ronald, thanks for joining in, Ronald. I appreciate you adding your commentary. I see this time and again where references and comments and, well, honestly, realities that were Kamala Harris's are trying to be applied to Trump now. Very strange. Just like with Joe Biden, oh, he's not intellectually there. He's gotten too old. He's lost a step. Oh, no. All of a sudden, they try to turn the tables and put that on Trump, right? The projection is unreal in this case. It's unreal. Oh, what's going on here? 2 people on one account. Holy cow. Anna and Adrian. Sorry, my eyes are getting bad here. Anyway, he's such a bad, stupid, small man. You notice his vocabulary is so limited. 5th graders talk better grammar than this idiot. Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry. Didn't mean to. I'm not laughing. I'm just coughing. Sorry. All right. So it was very interesting press briefing that he gave there. What I want to do real quick is, well, here, I got to run and do something real quick. I'm going to put Tulsi Gabbard up here. A lot of interesting stuff coming out of, as was mentioned earlier, her hearing and so forth. But when I get back, I'm going to switch back to Karoline Leavitt's press briefing, which, man, these things are getting animated. Phenomenal effort. There's a massive difference between her and Karine Jean-Pierre. So anyway, we'll let this go on Tulsi. She's going to have a lot of introductions here going, but I don't know. Let me put up a new poll. Do you support Tulsi? And I appreciate you guys. It looks like 62% said that they're in favor of the tariffs. Wow, that's pretty good. I thought it would be a little bit closer, honestly, on that. So do you support Tulsi? Tulsi. Oh, I was about to put that into a chat. My goodness. Comment why or why not? Oh, let's get the volume going.
Including by shouting, standing, raising signs, or making gestures that block the view of other members of the audience or the cameras for those watching on television or online. Anyone who does so will be removed immediately by the Capitol Police and banned from return. Welcome, everyone, to this hearing on President Trump's nomination of Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence. Ms. Gabbard, welcome to the Senate Intelligence Committee. I also want to welcome your family in attendance today, including your husband, Abraham, your mother, Carol, and your sister, friend Dobbin. I also want to acknowledge some very special friends of yours, Dakota Myers and Pat Payne, both Medal of Honor recipients. Gentlemen, on behalf of the grateful nation, I extend my deepest thanks to you and the heroes with whom you served. also note that our next Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is joining us. Apparently, she didn't have enough fun at her own confirmation hearing. Ms. Bondi, welcome and congratulations. And finally, Senator Joni Ernst and former Senator and Chairman of this committee, Richard Burr, will introduce Ms. Gabbard shortly. We look forward to your remarks. I think it's fair to say that Ms. Gabbard's nomination has generated a bit more interest and attention than do most nominees before this committee. But I want to stress that Ms. Gabbard has been and will be treated with the exact same respect, consideration, and professionalism that we extended to every nominee. No more, no less, no better, no worse. That's how we treated CIA Director John Ratcliffe just 2 weeks ago, and how we have treated DNI nominees like Avril Haines and Dan Coates in the past. For instance, Ms. Gabbard has conducted dozens of office meetings with senators. She has completed the committee's standard questionnaire. She has answered 247 questions in writing. This is all in keeping with the committee's customs, precedents, and rules. Before I address the important work ahead at the DNI, please also let me make two observations about some of the accusations about Ms. Gabbard. First, I'm dismayed by the attacks on Ms. Gabbard's patriotism and her loyalty to our country. For instance, Hillary Clinton has smeared Ms. Gabbard, calling her an asset of a foreign nation. Let me remind everyone that Ms. Gabbard has served in our Army for more than 2 decades. She has multiple combat tours, and she still wears the uniform to this day. She has undergone 5 FBI background checks. I spent more than 2 hours last week reviewing the latest, putting eyes on more than 300 pages. It's clean as a whistle. It's fine that we have differences of opinions on policies and programs. I suspect some of my Republican colleagues might disagree with some of Mrs. Gabbard's votes in the House of Representatives. Just as I suspect that some of my Democratic colleagues might criticize Ms. Gabbard's statements and actions since she saw the light and left the Democratic Party. But I sincerely hope that no one today will impugn Ms. Gabbard's patriotism and integrity. Second, I can only laugh at some critics who say that Ms. Gabbard has unconventional views. No doubt she has some unconventional views, like her criticism of Barack Obama's regime change interventions in Egypt and Libya. But guess what? I opposed the disastrous interventions in Egypt and Libya as well. Mubarak was a longtime American partner, and Egypt was a linchpin of our security system in the Middle East. Gaddafi had been scared straight after we toppled the Taliban and Saddam Hussein. He turned over his weapons of mass destruction and cooperated against terrorists. In return, we had lifted sanctions and reestablished diplomatic ties. But President Obama intervened to topple both regimes. And what came next? The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and dangerous chaos in Libya to this day. No one ever mistook Mubarak or Gaddafi as the little sisters of the poor. But let's not kid ourselves. The world is a dangerous place, not a church picnic. Ms. Gabbard understands this, which is why she also saw the problem with regime change interventions in these places. The vast number of governments throughout history and still today are not democratic. We may wish it were different and we can work to improve it, but that's the way the world is. If we only befriended nations that shared our system of government and our social and cultural sensibilities, well, we wouldn't have many friends. In a fallen world, we have to take our friends where we find them. No question, stable democracies make the most stable friends, but what matters in the end is less whether a country is democratic or non-democratic, and more whether the country is pro-American or anti-American. I'll confess that those views may be somewhat unconventional, but look at where conventional thinking has got us. Maybe Washington could use a little more unconventional thinking. And I'm sure that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence could use more unconventional thinking. Ms. Gabbard, I submit that if confirmed, the measure of your success will largely depend on whether you can return the ODNI to its original size, scope, and mission. When Congress created the ODNI, we intended to put one office in charge to manage the different agencies of the intelligence community. Congress intended the ODNI to be a very lean organization that would use small staffs to execute specific tasks. Congress in no way wanted yet another unruly bureaucracy layered on top of an already bureaucratic intelligence community. Unfortunately, 20 years later, that's exactly what the ODNI has become. Incredibly, the ODNI now is now larger than any agencies it was established to manage. It has 15 offices and centers, which have many subunits within them. The ODNI staff is measured in the thousands, when it should be measured in the dozens, or maybe a few hundred. I promise that's going to change. I intend to get personnel at the ODNI back to their home agencies doing real intelligence work, not bureaucratic make work. I also expect to cap the size of the ODNI. Ms. Gabbard, if confirmed, I hope you'll be a partner in these vital efforts. Another example of bureaucratic mission creep and empire building is what's come to be known in the intelligence community as DNI taxes. The ODNI levies these so-called taxes on other agencies, shifting and directing funds away from the intelligence community's core mission to the whims and fancies of any particular DNI. That practice, which seems to have grown and run rampant under Director Haynes, is also going to stop. Ms. Gabbard, if confirmed, you have a lot of work ahead of you. And as chairman of this committee, I'm committed to ensuring that we see it all the way through. At this moment, I'll now recognize Senator Risch for a brief statement.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Ms. Gabbard for meeting with me and having the candid conversation we did on the issues. Unfortunately, I have to chair the Foreign Relations Committee. We have our first substantive meeting today on malign influence of China here at home and abroad. So I'm not going to be able to stay for the hearing. I'm not going to get a chance to ask questions. However, we are going to have a closed session immediately following, and the questions I have trespass upon the security of the country, and as a result of that, they need to be done in a classified setting in any event. So if I beg indulgence to be excused to preside over the other committee, good luck. I know you'll do well. Thank you.
You are excused.
I was going to leave whether you excuse me or not, but thank you very much.
I will now recognize the Vice Chairman, Senator Warner, for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and particularly thank your comments at the top. I've spent most of the morning at National Airport. I know Senator Moran was there last night. It's a horrible tragedy. The victims' families are still being notified. For those of us who live in this region, you know, it's always kind of complicated. We've got Virginia, D.C., Maryland, and a host of local jurisdictions. But last night, when this tragedy took place, and I happened to be driving by National on the way home, and saw all the first responders rushing to the scene. People came from as far away as Baltimore, Fairfax County. We had DOD and federal officials there. And these first responders, as always, ran towards the tragedy. There'll be a time to figure out what happened and how we rectify it. But today, our thoughts and prayers ought to be with the families, and again, thanking our first responders. Ms. Gabbard, welcome, and congratulations on your nomination to be the next Director of National Intelligence. I'd like to begin by thanking you, literally, for your decades of public service, both in uniform and as a member of Congress from Hawaii. I applaud your continuing commitment to serve should you be confirmed. Now, the President has nominated you to be Director of National Intelligence. Most folks probably don't understand the importance of this position. If confirmed, you would lead 18 agencies of the IC. You'll also serve as the principal advisor to the President, the National Security Council, and the Homeland Security Council for all intelligence matters related to national security. And in this role, you'll be responsible for over $100 billion between the National Intelligence Program and the Military Intelligence Program, or the NIP and the MIP as we call them here. It's a position of great importance and significance to our national security, created after one of our worst national security failures, 9/11. For that reason, when Congress established this position, thanks in large part to our colleague and our friend Susan Collins, it mandated in law that any individual nominated for this position must have, and I quote, extensive national security expertise. Now, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, and as I noted in that office, both before and after, I continue to have significant concerns about your judgment and your qualifications to meet the standards set by law. First, as I noted previously, the DNI was created in part to make sure we had appropriate intelligence sharing, which prior to 9/11, obviously we haven't. But the mission also is to not only share information between the IC, but also with our allies. There's no legal requirement that our allies share intelligence with us. It's all predicated on trust. Trust that our allies will protect each other's secrets. It appears to me you have repeatedly excused our adversaries' worst actions, and instead often blamed them on the United States and those very allies. For example, you blame NATO for Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. You rejected the conclusion that Assad used chemical weapons in Syria, despite it being the unanimous assessment of the then Trump administration's DOD, State Department, and IC, as well as the assessment of our European allies. Instead, you blame the United States for supporting terrorist groups in Syria. Now, I don't know if your intent in making those statements was to defend those dictators, or if you were simply unaware of the intelligence and how your statements would be perceived. In either case, it raises, at least for this senator, serious questions about your judgment. It also leads me to question whether you can develop the trust necessary to give our allies confidence that they can share their most sensitive intelligence with us. Make no mistake about it. If they stop sharing that intelligence, the United States will be less safe. We've seen this as recently as this past year, where because of those strong intelligence sharing between the United States and Austria, countless lives were saved by disrupting a terrorist attack that was going to take place at the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. Second, you have been publicly outspoken in your praise and defense of Edward Snowden, someone who betrayed the trust of our nation and jeopardized the security of our country. The truth is, the vast majority of the information he stole and leaked before running off to China and Russia, might I add, had nothing to do with Americans' privacy and compromised our most important sources and methods. And in many ways, we're still paying a price for that. And I believe that Edward Snowden's action put our men and women in uniform in places like Iraq and Afghanistan at risk. You have celebrated Snowden as a, quote, brave whistleblower, and actually put forward legislation asking for his pardon. Furthermore, when given the opportunity to clarify your position in pre-hearing questions, you declined. And instead you expressed, and again I quote, the DNI has no role in determining whether or not Edward Snowden is a lawful whistleblower. Well, that is troubling to me in so many ways. Not only do you think that someone who divulged secrets and then ran off to Russia should be celebrated as brave, but you don't seem to understand the DNI's role in determining whistleblower determinations. In fact, the DNI has a significant role in transmitting lawful whistleblower complaints to this committee. They're all laid out right here in the statute. And I would have serious concerns about confirming someone who cannot distinguish between complaints that are made lawfully and those that are made not. In the statute, it says the job of the DNI is to protect intelligence sources and methods from unauthorized disclosure. That's a quote. I guess I'm asking, what message would it send to have a DNI who would celebrate the work of a member of the IC or a contractor that would, on their own mission, to decide what's appropriate to leak? I don't understand that. Third, until recently, you had a clear and consistent record of opposing FISA 702. I know members on this committee already understand how important this is, but for folks who don't, this law is critical to our national security. Literally 60% on average of what goes into the president's daily brief, what President Trump will read each day in assessing what's going on in the world, comes from this important piece of law that allows us to seek out those foreigners abroad for coverage. And it's helped prevent terrorist attacks. It helps us prevent foreign cyber attacks. It helps us on a topic that a lot of folks are looking at, fentanyl trafficking. Now, many in this Congress and many on the committee have tried to reform this legislation to better balance security and civil liberties. However, you have consistently gone further. Not only did you vote against reauthorizing 702, you actually introduced legislation to fully repeal the whole thing, calling it again, quote, a blatant disregard for our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. Now, I understand that since you've been nominated to be DNI, you've expressed a change of heart. I think that's welcome, but I have to tell you, as I view this as a job interview, as I try to make my judgment on whether you should be confirmed, I don't find your change of heart credible. Because the world today is more complex and more dangerous than ever before. And we need serious people with sufficient experience to be able to navigate that complexity. I hope you use this opportunity to address my concerns and all of the members of this committee. I appreciate again your service, and I'm looking forward to a thorough discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. We welcome back Senator Richard Burr, the former chairman of this committee who has emerged from retirement to introduce Ms. Gabbard. Yet still in retirement, he still seems unable to find a pair of socks. Nonetheless, we say thank you and welcome you back, Senator Burr.
Some things are very predictable, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman Cotton, Vice Chairman Warner, members of this distinguished committee, I want to thank you for allowing me to join you today to provide my thoughts and support on behalf of Tulsi Gabbard's nomination to be Director of National Intelligence. This is my first visit back to the Senate in slightly over 2 years. Permit me to say, from this side of the dais, you're not as intimidating as I thought when I was on your side of the dais. When I was chairman of this committee, Senator Warner and I stuck to a single refrain with our staff: follow the facts wherever they lead. Today, an anonymous person or group launching a campaign using rumors as sources and accusations as fact can drive the outcome of an election and of public opinion. I know it to be true. Remember, I sat in your chair for the Russia investigation, where we found much of the influence to be the result of fictitious narratives driven by Russia. Now, some of you may be wondering, why do I support Tulsi Gabbard, and why am I here to introduce her as a nominee? I've experienced firsthand a coordinated attempt to influence this nominee's support in the United States Senate and with the American people. I was contacted by several national journalists shortly after the president nominated Tulsi, asking me to confirm one of the many rumors circulating about this nominee. I informed each journalist over a 5-week period that the rumors shared with me was just simply not true. This narrative was shared from one journalist to the next journalist to the next journalist. I assume today they ran out of journalists. This was a coordinated effort to kill this nomination. Advise and consent is the responsibility of the United States Senate, and I truly believe that each member takes it seriously. All members of this committee were offered the opportunity for individual meetings with Tulsi, and if you chose not to meet with her, it's on you. I've done my homework, and here are the facts. Tulsi Gabbard's historic life began at birth. She's the first American Samoan-born member of Congress, period. She graduated from Hawaii Pacific University with a degree in business administration with a concentration in international business. In 2002, at age 21, Tulsi became the youngest woman in America ever elected as a state representative. That was not enough. In 2003, she joined the Hawaii National Guard. When deployed, in her re-election, her opponent raised the issue, could you serve the people that elected you if, in fact, you were deployed? What did Tulsi do? She withdrew from her re-election campaign in order to continue to serve our country in the war on terror. This would not be the first or the last time Tulsi put her country above her career. After multiple deployments and serving in the Hawaii City Council, she was elected to the United States House of Representatives, where she served 4 terms. Throughout her political career, she maintained her military service either in the National Guard or the Army Reserve. Media stories and anonymous rumors have questioned her qualifications, her patriotism, and whether she can be trusted, just to name a few. I refuse to question the qualifications of a woman who's worn the uniform of her nation for 22 years and never taken it off. No fewer than 5 times has the Department of Defense reviewed her security clearance and extended it. Every single time. If Tulsi's guilty of anything, it's that since she was born, her views, opinions, and beliefs have evolved to reflect her life's experiences. Winston Churchill once said, "Those that never change their minds never change anything." She served her city, her state, her country, while winning the support of the people she represented. She's fought in war, and yes, she's tried to stop wars. At the ripe age of 43, Tulsi has the life experiences that match or exceed most members of Congress. Tulsi was serving in uniform 3 years before some of us here today voted to create the Director of National Intelligence. Chairman Cotton, Vice Chairman Warner, members of the committee, it's my honor to support and to introduce to the committee Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Burr. Now our colleague, Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, has taken a few minutes out of her very busy schedule to be here to introduce Ms. Gabbard as well. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Chairman Cotton and Ranking Member Warner. And good morning to my distinguished colleagues. I also do want to take a moment this morning to recognize the lives that were lost in the collision near DCA last night. It is a truly heartbreaking tragedy. My prayers are with the victims' families and their loved ones. So thank you. Duty, honor, service. These are not just words. They are principles that have guided Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard. As a young enlisted soldier in the Hawaii National Guard, Tulsi answered the call to duty upon her deployments to the Middle East. From graduating at the top of her class from the Accelerated Officer Candidate School at the Alabama Military Academy, the first woman to do so, to serving as the youngest member of Hawaii's legislature. She upheld honor while breaking barriers both in uniform and in her civilian leadership roles. And today, Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard demonstrates her commitment to service by sitting before this committee, prepared to answer the nation's call yet once again, this time as the next Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi and I share similar backgrounds, both to our nation and to our communities. We've worn the same uniforms, serving in the Army National Guard and Army Reserves, leading battalions and deploying to Iraq and Kuwait. We've both had the privilege of serving in our state legislatures and in Congress, representing the people who shaped our lives and our communities. Tulsi exemplifies what it means to rise above partisanship, putting the needs of the American people over political divisions. She put her own life on the line in combat operations and now has set aside partisan differences as a former Democrat member of Congress to answer the call to serve in a Republican administration. The mainstream media has fought to paint their own picture of Tulsi Gabbard. But let's talk about the real Tulsi Gabbard, the woman and the soldier who I've come to know and respect. And I've known Tulsi for the past decade. Relationships matter. In 2015, then Congresswoman Gabbard met my dear friend Owen, who was a dear friend of mine from Iowa State University. Owen was a wounded special operations warrior who embodies the resilience and strength of our military community. Owen was the subject of an attack in Afghanistan where he lost his leg and his left eye serving in the war. After this attack, or during this attack, Owen was tossed into the dead pile. Owen, bleeding and in excruciating pain, cried out to his teammates, "I'm not dead." Thankfully, his fellow warfighter attended to Owen, but the road to recovery was long and hard, including a stint at Walter Reed Medical Center. During this time, Owen met a fellow warrior and patriot, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who became a friend, and today they remain in touch. Owen prides himself in being a very good judge of character. And Tulsi, he speaks volumes of your character. Owen's final message to me before this hearing was, Tulsi has maintained her integrity throughout her career. She's the same gal I met in 2015. She always makes time for our old, broken warriors. And colleagues, I will leave you with this. You know me. I trust Tulsi Gabbard. She will be honest with you. She will listen to your concerns. She will be receptive to your feedback. And rest assured, Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard loves this country, a fact proven by her willingness to put her life on the line to defend it. For over 20 years, she has put on the uniform and checked her political views at the door with one mission in mind: to protect and defend our great United States of America. Tulsi, duty, honor, and service have marked your life. Thank you for your extraordinary dedication to our nation, for embodying the values that make our military the best in the world, and for stepping up to serve yet once again as President Trump's Director of National Intelligence. Relationships matter. I urge my colleagues to support this nomination. My best wishes to you, Tulsi, and to your family. God bless our country. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. I know that Senator Ernst has a busy schedule to include a hearing for Dan Driscoll, the Secretary of Army nominee at the Armed Services Committee. I'm sure Senator Burr has to go on a fishing trip or something. So we will excuse both senators from the witness table. Ms. Gabbard, before we move to your opening statement, it is the custom of the committee to ask a series of obligatory questions to all nominees. First, do you swear or affirm to give this committee your full and truthful testimony?
I do.
Second, do you agree to appear before the committee here or in other venues when invited?
Yes.
Third, if confirmed, do you agree to send officials from your office to appear before the committee and designated staff when invited?
Yes.
Fourth, do you agree to provide documents or any materials requested by the committee in order for it to carry out its oversight and legislative responsibilities?
I do.
Fifth, will you ensure that your office and your staff provide such material to the committee when requested?
Yes.
Sixth, do you agree to inform and fully brief, to the fullest extent possible, all members of this committee on intelligence activities and covert actions rather than only the chairman and the vice chairman?
Yes.
Thank you for those answers, Ms. Gabbard. We now welcome the opportunity, finally, to hear from you in your own words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I too would like to start by offering my prayers and condolences to those who were killed in last night's horrific crash. Senator Warner, Senator Moran, our condolences and prayers are with you and all of your constituents. Again, Chairman Cotton and Vice Chairman Warner and all of the members of the committee, it's an honor to be here before you today. I've appreciated the opportunity to meet with so many of you and address your questions and concerns before today's hearing. I know they've gone, but I'm grateful to Senators Burr and Ernst for their trust and their confidence in taking time to join us here today. To my husband Abraham, my family, friends, fellow veterans, Medal of Honor recipients, and patriots, thank you for your love and support. I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence. This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers, millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation. If confirmed as DNI, I will do my very best to fulfill this mandate and bring leadership to the intelligence community with a laser-like focus on our essential mission, ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. As the President's principal intelligence advisor, I'll begin by leading by example, checking my own personal views at the door, and committing to delivering intelligence that is collected, analyzed, and reported without bias, prejudice, or political influence. I enlisted in the Army because of the horrific terrorist attack on September 11th and volunteered to deploy to Iraq in 2005, where I served in a medical unit. After nearly 22 years in uniform with 3 combat deployments to the Middle East and Africa, I'm now a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, where I serve as a battalion commander of soldiers in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I served in Congress for 8 years on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services committees. And it's my experience in the military and in the halls of Congress that have given me a deep understanding of the complex challenges that our nation faces, in both roles engaging with world leaders, in both roles being privy to highly classified intelligence. So I know firsthand how essential accurate, unbiased, and timely intelligence is to the President, to Congress, and to our warfighters. I also know the heavy cost of intelligence failures and abuses. Senator Collins, you led the creation of ODNI specifically to address those intelligence failures of 9/11 and Iraq's so-called WMDs. The need for the ODNI under strong leadership still exists today. If confirmed, I'll bring my experience and fresh eyes to leading the intelligence community. And my day one priorities will be to assess the global threat environment, identify where gaps in our intelligence exist, integrate intelligence elements, increase information sharing, and ensure that unbiased, apolitical, objective collection and analysis to support the President and policymakers' decision-making occur. I'll work to end the politicization of the intelligence community and ensure there is a clear mission focus in the IC on its core mission of this unbiased, apolitical collection and analysis of intelligence to secure our nation. I'll work to rebuild trust through transparency and accountability. This is a national security imperative. And I'll work to assess and address efficiencies, redundancies, and effectiveness across ODNI to ensure focus of personnel and resources is on our core mission of national security. Now, in my meetings that I've had with many of you, you expressed bipartisan frustration about recent intelligence failures as well as the lack of responsiveness to your requests for information. Whether it's the surprise October 7th Hamas terrorist attack, to the sudden takeover of Syria by Islamist extremists, failures to identify the source of COVID, anomalous health incidents, UAPs, drones, and more. If confirmed, I look forward to working with you to address these issues. Ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people is a mandate of leadership that rises above partisan politics. If confirmed, my commitment to the President, to you, and to the American people is this: I will do my very best to find the truth, no matter where it leads, and share that truth with President Trump, his advisors, and you in Congress, providing you with that unbiased, timely, and accurate intelligence as you make the tough decisions that'll impact the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States, accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. I hate that we have leaders who cozy up to Islamist extremists, minimizing them to so-called rebels. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an Al-Qaeda offshoot, HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many American service members. Democrat senators in the past resorted to anti-Christian bigotry against some of President Trump's judicial nominees like Amy Coney Barrett and Brian Boucher. I condemn those actions as a Democrat in Congress at the time, as religious bigotry must be thoroughly condemned by all of us, no matter the religion. Unfortunately, there are some Democrat senators who still don't understand the principle of freedom of religion and Article 6 of the Constitution. Quote, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Unfortunately, they're once again using the religious bigotry card, but this time trying to foment religious bigotry against Hindus and Hinduism. If anyone is sincerely interested in knowing more about my own personal spiritual path of Hinduism, I welcome you to go to my account on X, where I'll share more on this topic. If confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will continue to live by the oath that I have sworn at least 8 times in my life, both in uniform and as a member of Congress. I will support and defend our God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gabbard. A few reminders before we begin our 5-minute round of questioning. First, a reminder to the audience, once again, I will not tolerate disruptions or
So let's see who the opening questions are going to come by. And thanks for the 30,000 that have come by so far. I really appreciate it. Toby, yeah, this is just opening remarks. I'm going to see who the first person is that's going to be asking questions here. I assume it's going to be a Republican. Fast forward that, see who the first Democrat is that's going to ask some questions. There should be some fireworks that go off from there. Otherwise, we're going to head back to the daily press briefing. Karoline Leavitt, phenomenal work there. Like and subscribe, folks. Let's keep going.
Disturbances, either in favor of or in opposition to Ms. Gabbard. We all came to hear from Ms. Gabbard, not from you. 2 reminders to my colleagues. We'll have a 5-minute round of questions. Not 5.5, not 6, 5-minute round. We will also have a closed session after this hearing in which you'll have another 5-minute opportunity to ask questions. Second, if any question, as Senator Risch alluded to, begins to approach the line of classified material, my crack staff will advise me and I will ask you to hold the question until we get to a closed setting.
Mr. Chairman, could I just inquire? I was under the understanding that if in the open round, because this is the only time the American people will be able to see this judgment, you'd agreed if certain members needed to ask a second round of questions in the public setting, that would be available.
As is our custom, if a member waits until the end of the opening round and has a follow-up question, then we will permit that follow-up question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Gabbard, if confirmed, you'll be entrusted with our nation's most important secrets. We're all entrusted with that information to serve the American people and to keep our country safe. Unfortunately, as you said in your opening and went on to his laptop,
All right, I'm
likely
going to
being
fast
Russian
forward here a little
disinformation.
bit. Bear with me, guys.
Do you agree that this was
President Trump
utilize undermine from an and
review
The DNI. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a first.
responsibilities that exist elsewhere in some of the other
All right, so this should be wrapping up Chairman's questions, who is obviously Republican, going into the ranking member on the Democrat side to ask some questions. What is he talking about? This was a first. I don't know. Let's see. Political ASMR in action here.
intelligence elements that ODNI has oversight over.
Thank you. Colleagues, I will lead by example and yield back 1 minute of my time and recognize the Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a first. Ms. Gabbard, let me be clear, at least in my views. I salute your service to our country, but I have serious doubts about your judgment.
Yes, when someone starts off like that, I mean, it's clearly a compliment wrapped in an insult with many, many more to follow. Let's see where he goes with this.
And those are some of the areas that I want to pursue. First, until you are nominated by the president to be the DNI, you consistently praise the actions of Edward Snowden. Some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation, and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights.
I don't think he flaunted anything by escaping. He was just trying not to go to jail. I'm pretty sure. Maybe that's an opinion, but I'm pretty sure.
Of legal whistleblowers. But Edward Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Ms. Gabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government that led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
That was a unique way of answering that question. Let's see how he responds to it, because they usually want a yes or no because they pin you with these moral, I don't know, these moral dilemmas, right?
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Yeah,
back those words.
Once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He also released information
we agree that Edward Snowden
that
broke the law.
exposed the United States
Asking you a
government's
question whether
illegal
your
programs.
legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's
I've got other issues to
illegal
raise.
activities.
Ma'am,
If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets, and I have 4 immediate...
Interesting, right? So a good way of handling it here, I think, relating it to the position that you were being appointed to and your response to it. I see Chad here. Let me put up his comment here. Y'all probably could see that. What a coward. Just say, yes, he was brave. I don't think so. I mean, they have to think in terms of how this will get broadcasted out there, right? If she were to just say yes or no, media would run with it. All kinds of stories and all kinds of permutations will ensue. What she needs to be clear about, and then it's the song and dance of it, she needs to be clear about is her position on the action in general. Like, he didn't go about it the right way. He broke the law. And that's basically what she's outlining here. And she needs to, because she's going to represent, the highest levels of intelligence to the president and give him counsel on it. So
Immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain the trust of our Five Eye partners? I find it very troubling. Let me move to 702. I know other members are going to raise this. Remember, the 702 is critical to our national security. 60% of the president's daily brief, 60% of the information President Trump gets.
And just for accuracy's sake, when Tulsi was going to be president or running for president in 2020, she did call for the charges to be dropped against him. And she did co-sponsor legislation with Matt Gaetz on that. But of course, she's now standing firm that she would not recommend the pardon. And, based on the role that you have to take, sometimes you take a different approach on it, right? So, sometimes the interest of the individual, the interest of the organization that you have, it changes depending on the role that you have to play at that given moment. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but just should be acknowledged.
It's every day in a PDB will come from this.
Again, though, comments earlier in terms of capacity to execute and do the job well. Does this have a direct correlation to that, or is this all for show so that Rachel Maddow can have a clip to continue the attempt to make MSNBC relevant? I don't know.
You've had a long history of opposing 702. Many members of Congress have. But one of the things you actually done that not many have is not to reform it, but you actually said you wanted to repeal it. But now, whether it's, confirmation conversion or whatever, you call 702 vital. And I'm quoting, because of significant FISA reforms have been enacted since you left Congress. Ms. Gabbard, what are the reforms that have led you to now support 702?
In the short time that I have, Senator, I will just note that my actions in legislation in Congress were done to draw attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard, Ms. Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that all of you and your wisdom.
Man, she's about to start here. There are a number of the reforms that include, and he jumps in. My goodness, he doesn't want to answer.
Gabbard, my time is getting short.
Y'all saw that? Let me go back. I mean, did I see that incorrectly?
You supported. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that all of you and your wisdom.
Gabbard, my time is getting short, but I got to.
I don't know. What was he expecting? Asking a question. She said that include, and she's about to answer, and then he sorry, my time's getting short. She even had a smile over that one. Like, geez, man, like are you paying attention? Are you just reading off your script? You haven't got to the end of your script yet, and time's almost up. What's going on?
Just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May. The bill is now law. And you said, quote, this bill took an already bad problem and made it many, many times worse. Again, in my mind, this is a question of judgment. 702 is critical. I appreciate this late conversion, but I'm not sure I buy it because you've had such a consistent position. Again, I know my colleague's going to raise these, but rather than standing up to dictators like Putin and Assad, you've sometimes amplified his talking points. I mean, I just do not understand how you can blame NATO for Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And when Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, you didn't condemn him. I can go through all the quotes. You actually questioned Americans' intelligence. Now, you mentioned a lot about trust. You know, and one of the things that I'm so proud on this committee is my friend Senator Verse said, we always follow the truth. I say on this committee, the most valuable work I do in this, and we have a bipartisan approach to intelligence. I think we have worked to try to keep the intelligence community and earn their trust, and frankly, earn the trust of the American people. But I, respectfully, ma'am, I just don't believe on your judgment and credibility issues that this is the appropriate role that you should take going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Gabbard, Edwards.
So all that buildup that just unfolded, all of that stuff brought itself to that one moment where he would just say, I don't believe that, you should be appointed or that you should be confirmed. And that was it. All that lead up, the interrupting, literally not letting her answer the question. I can't believe that. I haven't seen that before. Usually it's the person answering the question that meanders and tries to waste time, frustrating the senator. It's the first time I've seen the senator stop the person they've asked the question from continuing. What's going on? What's going on? Is it symbolic of how the Democrat Party is operating at this point? Is that a new strategy? I don't know. Yeah, Ellen, I mean, exactly right, Ellen. He makes statements, not wanting an answer. It's 5 minutes of sound bites. And, they often say to the Democrats, they'll say like, oh yeah, we coordinated our questions. If they really coordinated it and they have 5 minutes, instead of rattling off a monologue for half that time and then these one-liner zinger type questions, why don't they just each one delve into a specific topic, one or two questions, and allow the person to answer more robustly, coordinate like that. Because you only have 5 minutes. You want to give people, the public, an opportunity to hear from the nominee being confirmed in the hearing. Why not structure it in a way that we can actually hear in a real interview take place? Structure it as an interview and allow your time to kind of go, bounce back and forth or whatever it needs to be. It's all for show at that point.
Snowden does stand out as having done particularly grave harm to our...
All right, fast forwarding. Actually, you know what? Let's jump out of the state. Thanks for the follows, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go back here. Let's listen into Karoline Leavitt because honestly, I mean, all the press secretaries that Trump had, phenomenal. Oh, here we go. She's jumping in gear, and I don't know who these two jabronis are, but why don't you all get off the screen because we got Karoline here.
Good to see all of you. Happy Friday. It's great to be back with you. I want to provide an update on President Trump's actions in the wake of the catastrophic air collision that tragically claimed the lives of 67 people at Reagan National Airport on Wednesday night. Everyone in this White House continues to mourn the victims and keep their friends and families in our thoughts and prayers during this unimaginable time. First, within moments of the collision, the president and his newly appointed team were in immediate communication. The president was briefed on Wednesday evening following the crash, again on Thursday morning, and he has continued to receive updates as recovery efforts continue on the ground. The president, as you know, took time to address the nation yesterday afternoon. To deliver accountability, President Trump swiftly signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the Federal Aviation Administration to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and policy aviation safety standards. The memorandum directs the Secretary of Transportation and the FAA Administrator to immediately review all hiring decisions and changes to safety protocols made during the prior 4 years, and to take all necessary corrective actions to achieve uncompromised aviation safety. The review will include a comprehensive assessment and reversal of any deterioration in hiring standards and aviation safety standards and protocols during the previous administration. Aviation safety was addressed by President Trump before this tragic collision even took place. On his second day in office, the president signed a memorandum to immediately stop Biden DEI hiring programs and return to non-discriminatory, merit-based hiring. And in 2018, during President Trump's first term, the Department of Transportation announced it would put an end at that time to use the biological questionnaire that was introduced by the Obama administration, which punished skilled applicants. President Trump has long led on the issue of aviation safety, and he will continue to do so. He will continue to deliver on the promises he made to the American people at record speed. The Senate has already confirmed 8 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees, including most recently Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, as you of course know, EPA Secretary Lee Zeldin, and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who is scheduled to be sworn in later today. We expect the Senate to continue quickly confirming the remainder of President Trump's well-qualified nominees in the days ahead. Earlier this week in the East Room, the president proudly signed the Laken-Riley Act into law, surrounded by Laken's loving parents and sister. This common-sense bipartisan law mandates the federal detention of illegal aliens who are accused of theft, burglary, assaulting a law enforcement officer, and any crime that causes death or serious bodily injury, like the animal.
I swear, Jim Acosta has grabbed a secondary mic and he's putting it next to the speaker or something here. Like, Jim, get out of here. I'm blaming Jim Acosta for all the feedback that she's getting.
Who murdered Laken Riley in cold blood. This was the first piece of legislation President Trump proudly signed as the 47th president of the United States, and it will guarantee that Laken did not die in vain. As Laken's mother, Allison, tearfully said during the signing event, President Trump said he would secure our borders and that he would never forget about Laken, and he hasn't. He's a man of his word, and we trust that he will fight for the American people. Those are the words of Laken's mother, and we will never forget them. So to help lock up even more criminal illegal aliens, President Trump signed a memorandum this week to detain them at Guantanamo Bay. This action will expand the Migrant Operations Center at Naval Station Guantanamo Bay to full capacity to provide critical extra detention space for high-priority criminal illegals. Our brave ICE agents continue to arrest more and more of these types of individuals every day in communities across our country. And I have more updates for you. On January 27th, 2025, ICE Chicago arrested a citizen of Guatemala who has been convicted of solicitation to meet a child, disturbing, and sentenced to 24 months probation. On January 28th, 2025, ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of South Korea who has been convicted of 9 counts of possession or control of material depicting minors in sexually explicit conduct. On January 28th, ICE New York arrested a Mexican national previously charged by the state of New York for attempted murder and possession of a weapon and assault. And on January 28th, ICE Philly arrested a citizen of Mexico who has been convicted of possession of child pornography. Our message is simple. If you are a criminal illegal alien, you will be arrested and deported. On another important matter, the nation's report card was released this week, and the news is not good. It showed that U.S. students had record low reading comprehension scores last year. It's National School Choice Week, and in part of the president's commitment to education, he just left a roundtable in the Roosevelt Room focused on this issue with leaders from across the country. The national report card showed that 70% of 8th graders were below proficient in reading, and 40% of 4th graders did not even meet the basic reading levels. This is completely unacceptable to the president, and he continues to take aggressive actions to address this education problem in our country. He signed an executive order this week prohibiting federal funding of the indoctrination of our children, including radical gender ideology and critical race theory in the classroom. The president believes American education should focus on cultivating patriotic citizens who are ready for the workforce. And this action will help get schools back on track and defend fundamental parental rights in education. The president also signed a school choice executive order expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families. And in lighter news, but in exciting news, after announcing our briefing room changes on Wednesday, this White House has received more than 10,000 submissions from individuals across the country who are eager to join all of you. We might have to make this room a little bit bigger to do that, who want to participate in our new media seat at a future briefing. So in this seat today, we have the Ruthless podcast. They humbly started by entertaining small audiences on Capitol Hill, but after 4 years, this program has become one of the most influential podcasts in America. They previously reached #1 on the charts and earned over 25 million downloads as they deliver political news with a humorous touch. The hosts are Josh Holmes, Michael Duncan, Comfortably Smug, and the man joining us today, John Ashbrook. So with that, I will take your questions. John, please kick us off.
Thank you very much. You know, Karoline, in your first briefing, the media went after this administration for deporting illegal immigrants they claimed were not criminals. The question is, do you think they're out of touch with Americans demanding action on our border crisis?
The media out of touch? I think the media certainly is out of touch, and I think that's proven by a number of things, John. #1, there was a New York Times poll that was released prior to President Trump's inauguration by the New York Times, which of course is a legacy media outlet, that showed that 83% of Americans support deporting the individuals that you mentioned, illegal immigrant criminals, especially those who have committed heinous crimes in the interior of our country. And I received a very actually interesting statistic on this front from ICE this week. 97% of the deportations that this administration has made thus far are of individuals who had a removal order from the previous administration, but were never removed from the interior of our country. So this shows that the previous administration was actually defying our laws, and all this administration is doing is simply following the laws, the immigration laws of this great country. Thanks for the question, John. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. Peter.
Thanks, Caroline. If President Trump is telling us that air traffic control towers are staffed with unqualified controllers, these DEI hires who never should have been brought on, then it's not safe to fly commercially, is it?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he believes that it is still indeed safe, and Americans should feel safe traveling our skies. With that said, two things can be true at the same time, and we certainly have seen the deterioration of federal hiring standards at the Federal Aviation Administration, and the president wants to increase those standards. He wants pilots in this country who have the great responsibility of flying American citizens by the tens of millions every single day to be chosen for that position based on their merit and their skills. And so the administration will continue to prioritize this.
Was the air traffic controller in the DCA tower on Wednesday night hired or not fired at some point because of his or her race?
That investigation is ongoing, and so when we have updates on the exact individuals who were involved in the collision, including the air traffic controller, also the pilots of the helicopter and others, we will confirm those. I don't want to confirm names from this podium today. We're not in a position to do that. But I will say the president has still rightfully pointed out that there has been problems with the aviation industry over the past several years. And this started under Barack Obama in 2014.
And when the president says on Truth Social, the Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot, it was far above the 200-foot limit, that's not really too complicated to understand, is it? Is he suggesting a helicopter malfunction or a crew error or a crew doing this intentionally?
No, the president is simply stating what he said in that Truth Social post, which is that the helicopter was flying higher than it should have been, which is one of the reasons that led to this collision. And the other reasons for that are still being investigated, and I will let that investigation play out. Kelly.
Some of our colleagues have obtained a memo from the Defense Intelligence Agency that talks about not holding any activities or programming related to Black History Month to be in line with the president's views on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Does the president plan to have a proclamation about Black History Month? In his first term, each of the 4 years of his term, he did so and called on those in government to have programming activities and celebrations. Is he going to do that this year?
Yeah, the president looks forward to signing a proclamation celebrating Black History Month. I actually spoke with our great staff secretary. It's in the works of being approved, and it's going to be ready for the president's signature to signify the beginning of that tomorrow.
If an agency is calling off those kinds of activities in an attempt to be in alignment with the president's views on DEI and other things, should they adjust that now and have those programs and make those celebrations however they see fit in the office?
The president is leading here at the White House, and I'll leave it to the proclamation that he will sign very soon. Mary, great to see you.
Thanks for having us. So I wanted to follow up on the gender executive orders you mentioned. First of all, we know that President Trump has taken a bunch of steps to protect children from irreversible transgender procedures. Is he interested in backing congressional legislation on this point?
Folks, what happened to the guy behind her asking the question here? Like he got in a bit of a fist fight there before he came in the door. I don't know. His right eye looks a little swollen. Maybe it's a few days old or something. But what's going on in the press room here?
And does the Trump administration have interest in investigating doctors who perform these irreversible procedures on kids, such as a double vasectomy on a minor girl?
Well, the president has already taken a very strong stance on this issue this week with the signing of his executive order, a few executive orders in this space. First, he made it the official policy of the federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female, and we have directed all federal agencies to comply with that policy. As for congressional legislation to support the president's agenda in this space, and certainly ending the mutilation of young children, the chemical castration of young children, which is a barbaric practice that the vast majority of Americans do not support for young minor children. Certainly the president would support Congress's efforts, as he has already made that very clear this week. Jennifer.
On Rick Grinnell's trip to Venezuela to meet with Nicolas Maduro, is there anything you can share on timing on that? What is it?
So, I think maybe it's appropriate to show a clip from Morgan Freeman. Let me see if I could get this over here real quick, guys. Morgan Freeman on 60 Minutes, he had an interview, and his perspective on having Black History Month. Let's take a look real quick.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh.
I want to show you one more of Morgan Freeman. This is from a couple years back. He was on 60 Minutes being asked this stuff.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
And that, I think, is the key phrase out of all of it. It's American history. What ways can we look to divide, or what ways can we look to come together and just acknowledge it's a part of our mutual existence, our mutual, community, what we all stand for, right? So, I mean, that's where I stand on this, personally. Every other day seems to be another day, right? It's annual, whatever day, fill in the blank. I'm about to fill out the form and get a few of my own out there. Annual Senor Moo Day. I don't know. Should we do it? I don't know. But yeah, Chad pointed out it's not like he's terribly, conservative, generous. Although, the scales have changed significantly. So maybe by today's standards, he would be, right? I don't know. All right. So let's let Karoline continue her excellence in communication.
Agenda is what the mission of that trip is?
Yes, so I can confirm that Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela today. I can confirm that Rick Grinnell is going to Venezuela, or is in Venezuela, with two immediate directives from the President of the United States. Number one, Rick Grinnell has been instructed to identify a place and ensure that repatriation flights of Tren de Aragua members, Venezuelan nationals who have broken our nation's laws will land in Venezuela. As I said at this podium a few days ago, we expect every nation on this planet to cooperate with the repatriation of our citizens, and so Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela to ensure that can continue. And number two, Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela to ensure that all U.S. detainees in Venezuela are returned home. That's his mission, and I will provide a readout after this trip.
On Bob Menendez, can you tell us if anyone has approached the White House or the president about a pardon or a commutation?
I have not been part of those discussions. If they have, I am not sure if they have, but I won't speculate on potential pardons that may or may not happen. To my awareness, the answer is no. Justin.
Hey, friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada.
Man, Justin's like shocked that she called on him. He just rolled out of his parents' basement. I mean, what did he say? My friends at Reuters? Like, what? You can't even take credit for a question you want to ask here? Let me start this again. This basement dweller. I'm sure he's a fine feller. Actually, I have no idea. I'm just judging him.
To my awareness, the answer is no. Justin.
Hey, friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China.
Rewind a little bit, folks. Maybe to about the 30-minute mark, and you'll see Trump actually signing it on this live stream here. So it's happening. It's done. And again, it's not just for negotiation. When you announce it in advance, like he did before he was elected, that's to kind of put some pressure negotiation-wise onto people. The intent of executing it now is to drive behavior. Think about the behaviors in terms of China getting that 10% hit in addition to what's already there. Respect our intellectual property rights, do business in the right way, fair, open markets, right? It's trying to fix the system as it stands now. We have a lot of agreements that are imbalanced and don't really put us in a good position to succeed long term, right? It's taking, right? It's causing us to continue to accrue debt over a long duration of time. And this is what happens when you have people in government making these commercial negotiations, which is effectively what they are, just at a massive scale. People negotiating and executing these agreements that have no practical sense of business, economics, what makes the world really run, right? These lifetime politicians. Biden was, what, 50 years in politics? I probably missed by 5 years. It's probably 45, but you get the point. These are the outcomes that happens when you have decades, if not a century, of people that have no real world sense of anything, and you have effectively lifetime appointees in the Congress. How long has Elizabeth Warren been there? How long has Mitch McConnell been there? I'm calling him out because this is not just a Democrat problem. This is across the board. We need to get those people out, and we need people to come in and have term limits behind it, right? Excuse me.
For the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
The president yesterday said that last night he was planning to discuss whether an exemption would be made on oil imports. Do you have any information on what decision he made there, or will there be exemptions at all?
No exemptions.
I don't have an update or readout for you on the exemptions, but those tariffs will be for public consumption in about 24 hours tomorrow, so you can read them then. Stephen Nelson.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I have 3 questions, if that's all right. I'd like to ask you about press freedom and then about 2 economic matters. On press.
Where are they pulling these dudes out from? My goodness, Beta Boy's on the loose. I thought the last guy rolled out of his parents' basement, but this guy's cracking voice. I mean, is he like in 8th grade? I have a few questions I'd like to ask you, if that's okay. What's your job here, buddy? Who are you? Are you a journalist or what? My Lord. You need to get some beta blockers.
Freedom. On Tuesday, you announced plans to roll back the more restrictive press badge policy of the Biden White House. But there's a different anti-press freedom policy I wanted to ask about. The Biden White House adopted a mysterious pre-screening process for journalists allowed into large event spaces that in the pre-pandemic days, first Trump term, were open to all journalists on campus. This effectively limited the diversity of reporters present and blocked the asking questions that large segments of the American public wanted answered. As press secretary, can you commit to abolishing this mysterious pre-screening process?
What? What did he ask? Pre-screening for people that are going to go in that room there?
There were a lot of mysterious processes that my team and I have had to unravel over the past 2 weeks that were implemented by the previous White House and in particular the previous press shop here. And so I can commit to a greater access and transparency, which I believe we already have by ensuring that the 440 journalists whose credentials were revoked will be reinstalled. They will get their credentials if they wish to. We've also, of course, opened up a new seat to new media. And as far as open press events here at the White House, if we tell you it's open press, it's.
And by the way, I have applied to be on that seat, that new media seat. I have no idea how you can support me, or I would ask for your help, but I have applied, and fingers crossed. You know, my number. I heard there was about 7,000 folks that are in the mix right now. So you know, put good intentions out there. You know, as long as you got some of a presence, like, you know, here we've had about 38,000 people. It's a late night stream. It's on a Friday. I mean, we're into Saturday now, Central Time. 38,000 folks have come through so far, about 330 concurrent. Not too bad. I mean, you know, maybe I can get a lottery pick there. Hey, just got another sub too. I appreciate it. Number 16,841, almost to 17K, which basically means I'm almost at 100,000. I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
It's open press.
So just to confirm, this pre-screening thing is something you're aware of and you'll work to undo to the maximum extent possible.
When we say something is
Why does this guy look like he just fouled himself? I don't know.
open press, it will mean it's open press.
Economic matters, and I can just ask them both at once for you. In New York City, Governor Hochul's congestion pricing went into effect this month. Vehicles that drive through parts of Manhattan have to pay a $9 toll. President Trump has made clear his opposition. He said that it's, quote, the most progressive tax known to womankind. Will the administration be trying to block this? And the second question is, millions and maybe tens of millions of Americans who voted for President Trump were excited about his plans to do away with taxes on tips, overtime, and Social Security benefits. But there's uncertainty about the timing of this. So can you clarify for them when this is going to happen? And does President Trump want this to be in the first, all three of those in the first batch of legislation early this year?
Well, to answer your question in one swoop, I will say that President Trump is committed to lowering taxes for Americans, cutting taxes for Americans. As for congestion pricing in New York, I do know that the president spoke with Governor Hochul about that. I don't have any, actions, so to speak, to read out for you on that issue today. Number two, when it comes to no taxes on tips and Social Security, the president has made it very clear to our allies on Capitol Hill that is a critical piece of this reconciliation package, and he expects that his tax cuts from 2017, which put a lot more money back into the American people's pockets, those must be implemented, and no tax on tips. The president is intent on delivering on that promise, and he will get it done.
And overtime also as part of reconciliation?
Yes. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Can you guarantee that those tariffs won't increase prices for Americans, including at the gas pump and the grocery store?
I think Americans who are concerned about increased prices should look at what President Trump did in his first term. He effectively implemented tariffs, and the average inflation rate during the first Trump administration was 1.9%. In fact, when President Trump left office, it was 1.4%. So President Trump is going to do everything he possibly can to cut the inflation crisis that the previous administration imposed on the American people, and he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
If those tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people. And, the media has this way of just looking at everything in a microscope rather than looking at the whole of government economic approach that this president is taking. He will effectively implement tariffs. He's also, as I just answered from Stephen's question, committed to tax cuts. He's also clearly committed, as evidenced by his executive orders, to unleashing the might of our energy industry, which we know will eventually drive down inflation. And all the other economic measures that this president has made will have a Trump incoming economic boom, just like we saw in our first term.
And these will be very needed because we have an impending downturn coming up. There's a lot of data that's not looking too hot. So all of these are going to be very necessary steps to pull us out of what's my opinion. This is not a guarantee, but all of these steps are needed to avoid crisis.
The White House found any Fox Business. Yes.
Thanks, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said today that if the U.S. imposes tariffs, he will respond and he will not relent until the tariffs are removed. Are we seeing the start of a trade war with Canada?
I don't think so. I think the president is going to implement those tariffs tomorrow, and he will respond to Mr. Trudeau's comments in due time, I am sure.
What type of things have to happen? What does the administration need to see in order to avoid those tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are incoming tomorrow on Canada, and the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl that is killing American citizens and also illegal immigrants into our country. In fact, I have more language for you right here. Canada, Mexico, and China, which, as I mentioned, President Trump will implement a 10% tariff on China, have all enabled illegal drugs to pour into America.
Again, it's not a negotiating tactic at this point. This is to drive behavior. They had their time, right, in terms of negotiation. Like, hey, guys, this is coming. You sure you don't want to fix the way you do things? This is to drive change in behavior, and that is the biggest thing right there, the fentanyl issues. So we need to do something to drive these things to completion. And let's highlight this
amount
comment.
of fentanyl that has been seized at the southern border in the last 2
Very good
years
call, Tara.
alone has the potential to kill tens of millions of Americans. And so the president is intent on doing this. And I think Justin Trudeau would be wise to talk to President Trump directly before pushing outlandish comments like that to the media.
If I may, one more.
Lindsay.
Go back to the plane crash for one. If I can go back to the plane crash for just 1 second.
You're interrupting your colleague, but sure.
Sorry, I thought you called on me.
I called on Lindsay.
The president this morning said the Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high. I'm wondering if he's basing that.
That was beautiful. I'm going to have to clip that for a YouTube short. You're interrupting your colleague. I mean, unreal. But he continues. He just keeps going on it. He just interrupted your colleague, but I'm going to keep talking. Like, what?
On what he learned from investigators, and if you could offer a little bit more of a window into how he is keeping abreast of this investigation.
Sure.
Is the NTSB briefing him separately? Is he meeting in the Situation Room? You just sort of offer a window into that.
Yeah, the president based that statement on truth because it is truth and it's fact, and it was relayed to him by the authorities who are overseeing the investigation into this horrific plane collision. And the president, as I said in my opening remarks, continues to be briefed on the collision by everybody across his cabinet, the Secretary of Transportation, the Secretary of Defense, the NTSB, who the commissioner there was in the Oval Office with him yesterday. Lindsay. Lindsay, go ahead. Lindsay, go ahead.
In recent days, the CIA actually revealed that they do also believe that COVID-19 was from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. How is the president planning on responding to this additional intel from the CIA, and will it impact how he responds to them with tariffs?
Yeah, kudos to John Ratcliffe for revealing that truth and that fact to the American people. Many years too late, the Biden administration had a chance to let the American people know the truth about that, and for some reason, they chose not to. I also would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again. Sure.
Karoline, thank you. I wanted to ask about Secretary Rubio's trip to Panama first. Sure. What did the conversations look like with President Trump on that? The president of Panama says it is, quote, impossible to negotiate over the canal. So what are you expecting from this visit?
So I have not been present for Secretary Rubio's conversations with President Trump about the Panama Canal. I have been present for President Trump's own thoughts on the Panama Canal, and you've all seen them as well in his public statements that he has shown. He believes it's unacceptable that the canal is essentially run by the Chinese Communist Party. If you look at both ends of the canal, massive Chinese Communist Party linked companies run the canal. That's unfair to the American people, many of whom lost their lives many years ago building this canal. The American taxpayers are paying millions of dollars for the canal, and the president believes it's in our national interest as a nation for Secretary Rubio to go there and begin these discussions, and that's exactly why he's doing that.
Caroline.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Is the United States in the process of pulling out of Syria militarily? Because the president wanted to do that in his first term as well, and he had a lot of pushback from the Pentagon and Congress. And based on what he said yesterday, is he considering doing that in a short time?
The president was asked and answered this question yesterday, and he, as the commander-in-chief of the United States military, reserves the right to review troop deployments overseas at any point in time.
Is that a topic right now?
Yes.
Thank you. Two questions. So we now know that the staffing was not normal at the air traffic tower, and so with the government freezing the hiring of new federal workers and offering buyouts, are you not afraid that more incidents of different kind could happen with less staffing in different agencies?
Well, the president is intent on ensuring that we are increasing staffing at these agencies, and that's why he signed a very strong executive order on his second day in office, immediately terminating DEI hiring practices at the FAA. He also, following the tragic crash, as you all know, in the Oval Office yesterday, signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the FAA to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and aviation safety standards. And I would also just say there's a cultural piece to this as well. If you are an American who has spent many years studying aviation and you graduate from school and you're an air traffic controller based on skill and merit, and then you apply for a job and you're forced to fill out a biographical questionnaire asking you the color of your skin and asking you where you're from in details that aren't relevant at all to the job description, I think that deteriorates the morale of people in this industry. And if you talk to people in this industry, they'll tell you that. In fact, many of them filed a lawsuit against the FAA a couple of years ago under Joe Biden's administration because they were denied positions because of this DEI hiring practice that was putting identity politics over merit and skills. That's unacceptable. And I think just to put a fine point on this, because this is the third or fourth question I've answered on this subject, when you are flying on an airplane with your loved ones, which every one of us in this room has, do you pray that your plane lands safely and gets you to your destination, or do you pray that the pilot has a certain skin color? I think we all know the answer to that question, and as President Trump said yesterday, it's common sense. Rob Crilly.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on that last question, actually. Has there been any sort of assurance from the FAA that they will immediately improve staffing levels, given the reports of not normal staffing levels on Wednesday?
Oh, absolutely. You had Secretary Duffy here yesterday at the White House at this podium saying that he is on it, and we can all trust that he definitely will be. John Decker.
Thanks a lot, Carol. You called on me, right?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.
As long as your name's still John Decker.
It is, absolutely. Thank you. The president's meeting today with the founder and CEO of NVIDIA. What is that meeting concerning, and who sought that meeting?
I don't have details on this. It's a private meeting. It will take place at 2:30 p.m. I'll try to get there in time, and I can let you know after. How's that?
On Guantanamo Bay, can you give more details about setting up that detention facility at Gitmo? How will that come about? What's the timing in terms of standing it up? And of course, this has happened before during the Clinton administration.
Yeah, that's right.
Detainees of Cuban and Haitian descent were both detained at Guantanamo. Are you looking at that model in setting up this detention facility?
Secretary Hegseth, I believe, was on television this morning answering this question, and he said that the Department of Defense is already on it. He has directed his agency to ensure that Gitmo is increasing their capacity for beds, and that's exactly what President Trump's executive order did. It directed Secretary Hegseth and also Secretary Noem to expand the Migrant Operations Center.
Hey, quick response question. Axel, sorry about that, my friend. I had a question here. After decades of trying, can they legally discriminate at this point, based on race? No, the Equal Protection Amendments and all that stuff, all the laws over time that came through the Civil Rights Movement, those are all in place. Those are still there. None of that's undone. This is about those training programs that are mandatory that you have to go to, that you have to be compelled to participate in. I'm glad they don't happen at work for me. But anyway, it's about all of those training programs that are kind of forced upon folks, the quotas, all those types of activities that happened supplemental to everything else that was already put into place. To where, as they're pointing out, like meritocracy, folks being kind of looked at based, on the capability, potential, that goes out the window. So that's what they're looking at.
At the naval station to provide for this extra detention space. And as Secretary Hegseth confirmed this morning, that operation is underway. Sure.
Caroline, on the tariffs, can you clarify whether those will actually be going into effect tomorrow, or
Yes.
whether there might be some lead time?
Yes.
And are those, they will
The
be
answer
going
is
into
already-
effect? Correct. And are those meant to be in place long term, or is there a scenario in which Canada, Mexico, and China can offer concessions and then they would be removed?
At this point, the president has made it very clear those tariffs are going to be implemented and in effect. If the president at any time decides to roll back those tariffs, I'll leave it to him to make that decision. But starting tomorrow, those tariffs will be in place. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline.
Yes.
Can you confirm a report by our friends at the Daily Mail that the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is going to be visiting the White House in February? And also, if I may, do you have any more details on Netanyahu's visit here next week?
Sure. I have not seen that report about the Prime Minister.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking into a muted microphone. I see a question up there. Meritocracy. What is that? Let me ask my AI friend, see if it comes up with a reasonable answer. Sometimes the model, you could clearly see, based on whomever's trained it, has a particular opinion. But let's see what it comes up with. Hey, can you define for the live stream audience what a meritocracy means? Oh, sorry. Hang on. Trouble. 1 second. All right, there we go. I think I got the screen flipped. Can you repeat that response for the live stream viewers?
Sure. A meritocracy is a system where individuals are rewarded and advanced based on their abilities and achievements, not on their background or social status. It prioritizes talent and performance.
How does that play in terms of other systems like diversity, equity, and inclusion?
In a meritocracy, the focus on individual achievement can sometimes overlook systemic barriers that impact marginalized groups. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives aim to address those disparities, ensuring everyone has fair opportunities to succeed. It's about balancing merit with equal access and support.
All right. Thanks, AI buddy.
You got it.
I can go check back with our friends at the National Security Council and get back to you on that. I can confirm that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be here on Tuesday, February 4th, for a working meeting and visit with the president. And I'm sure you will all be here, very excited to cover that visit. Sure. Daniel.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Back on the Guantanamo Bay subject specifically, obviously, why does the president feel like that's the best location or a good location to make sure that Americans are safe from...
Holy cow, where are they pulling these reporters out from? Even the lady in front of him was laughing at him before he's even had a chance to get a few words out. What, I mean, shoot. And then you got the guy in the back that got beat up before he showed up to work. I mean, geez, what happened to these reporters? I mean, they're pulling them out of like every corner, every basement. Lord of mercy. All right, I lost this question. I'm going to start over. But before I get to that question on the screen here, would you use that word to describe Pete Hegseth's appointment? And, with a lot of these appointments, I don't know the people in depth to give an assessment on that. And I always go back to Barack Obama. What were his qualifications to be president? If we're going to look at it through that strict lens. A lot of the questions that Hegseth got were centered around, have you led a large organization that has over 1 million people, 1 million staff, 2 million staff? Have you ever led an organization like that? Well, you're not qualified. Have you ever led an organization with a budget of over $700 billion or whatever it is, well, then you're not qualified. And they go down the list like that, and you got to think, how many organizations in the world have a budget over or even close to 700 billion? How many organizations in the world have millions of people working in that hierarchy? And you're probably going to have just a handful of people. Like there's literally 3 people in the world that would be qualified at that point. And, you know, one's probably the CEO of Walmart, right? You really narrow things down when you start getting that particular and specific. And in the case of Obama, what leadership experience did he demonstrate that you could have said he will be a good candidate for president? He was not a governor, because usually governor is something that people look at as a qualification. He was not a businessman to show a record of, you know, building things and showing, you know, demonstrating strategy, execution, so forth. But he did have the capacity to do it. Those qualities were there. They just had not yet been fully demonstrated. So I don't agree with a lot of his policies, but he clearly was up for the role and executed the role appropriately. I don't agree with a lot of what he did or what he said, the positions he took, but I don't think it's an argument to be made that he was not qualified in that way. So there's something different in there that qualifies people, right? And I'm pretty sure if Hegset's not up to par, Trump will swap them out pretty quick. So it's an interesting thought, though, Axel. Something that I think a lot of people are struggling with these days: how to nail down qualification. All right, back to the basement feller.
Illegal migrant crime.
Well, it's a really good question, and the memorandum that he signed, the order that he signed, builds on his previous executive actions, obviously, to secure our southern border and deport illegal criminals from the interior of our country. We know that we have an issue with detention space here in the interior, which is a big reason why Congress needs to pass this reconciliation package as quickly as possible to ensure that DHS and ICE have the funding they need to detain these individuals that the administration is very swiftly rounding up and deporting, arresting and deporting these illegal immigrant criminals. And so the president feels it's an appropriate place. Taxpayers are already funding it. The space is there. Why not use it? And the Secretary of Defense, as I said, is working on that as we speak. Sure.
Karoline?
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me here answering your question. So I want to talk more about the success that...
All right, chat, guys, what do you think? Did this guy come out of his parents' basement too? I mean, we're on to number 4 here. I don't know. He just, his mom helped him trim the beard before he went out there. I don't know.
ICE is having, finding these violent criminal aliens, some of them being sexual predators. But my friend Ben Bergquam reports that the Chicago mayor and the Illinois governor are preventing ICE agents from going into jails and prisons to enforce detainers against illegal aliens. In Maryland, the Attorney General has also put out a...
I see the chat talking about the incident, the aviation incident, the capacity for human error, human performance. This is the simplest answer that I could think of, honestly. This just people make mistakes. I'm sure they'll do a very thorough investigation and get to the bottom of things. But in all honesty, when humans are involved, there is not perfection, and it's the sad nature of things.
And a memo hindering local police cooperation with ICE. Does the administration have any comment on leftist state and local officials defying ICE and Trump's deportation efforts?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that Democrat officials in these cities who have been completely overrun and overwhelmed by illegal immigrant criminals would refuse support and help to cure this problem that has especially taken over their cities. I guess they don't want to admit they've been wrong with their sanctuary city policies. I'm not sure. You'll have to ask them about their intentions, but they would be very wise to comply with this administration, because this administration is hell-bent on enforcing our nation's immigration laws, and this administration will continue to arrest and detain and deport illegal migrant criminals. And what we won't do is defy our nation's immigration laws like the previous administration, who had these orders orders of removal on illegal immigrants across the country, and we're refusing to execute on them. We will continue to remove illegal criminals from our nation's interior.
Are these sanctuary city leaders, are they violating the law?
I would certainly think so. I'd have to check back on which specific law they're violating, but certainly if they're not enforcing our nation's immigration law, sounds like they are breaking the law. And I would also add that their constituents don't approve of that. You've seen residents in Chicago show up at their city council meetings infuriated with their leadership in that city because they are working very hard to provide for their families. They want public safety and law and order, and their officials have abandoned those very basic American principles in these cities. And the American people want law and order. It's, again, an overwhelmingly popular policy to deport illegal criminals from our nation's interior, and this administration will continue to affect that goal. Sure.
A question on Colombia. We just interviewed Colombian President Gustavo Petro, and he insisted that he's not going to take any Colombian deportee from the U.S. if they arrive in South America handcuffed. How this administration responds to that?
When did the Colombian president make those remarks?
Today, during an interview with us at Univision.
Well, I will share those with the President of the United States, and I will get back to you on his response.
What happens if Nicolas Maduro? Caroline, there are more than 150,000 disabled Americans who are working today. The president talked a lot yesterday about hiring the best and the brightest to work in the federal government. Safety aside, does he...
Guys, I'm calling your attention to Senor number 5 here that just rolled out of the basement. What is going on with the briefing room? I don't know. Am I off on this? Like, this is the 5th one now.
Believe that disabled people do have a place to work in the federal government, and does he also support the current protections for disabled people working in the private sector as well?
The president has made it very clear that this is a common sense solution to solving some of the problems that we have seen at the Federal Aviation Administration, and also when it comes to many of the federal agencies across our government. People should not be hired based on their disabilities, based on their skin color, their gender, their race. None of that matters. What matters to this president and this administration.
Folks, I mean, I see the chat talking about the aviation incident. It defies common sense in certain respects because of the level of training and stuff that that people undertake, right? I mean, I work in the oil industry, and a lot of incidents, a lot of things that happen come down to human behavior, whether somebody's too tired, they feel under the gun, under pressure to get something done. You go down the list of things, and you have to create the environment for that to remove those, challenges with human performance that can surface. Allow people the confidence to be able to, elevate when there's an issue and not, feel like they just have to keep pushing through. And I know the same is the case in the military, that people will speak up, but there's, again, I really feel like there's just humans involved, and we'll learn more as we go here. I see the notes that are in there that there were warnings issued, but sometimes things don't work out perfectly, and so you have to think, what can they change from a procedural standpoint, from a technology standpoint, to help guard against repeat. That's I mean, it's a sad scenario. In this instance, I'm sticking with the simplest logic behind it, that there's some level of human error involved here that's very unfortunate.
Is how well you can do your job, and the American people agree with that sentiment. So it's about competence, skill, and merit. And so the president is focused on ensuring that the most competent individuals, the best and the brightest in this country, are in positions in this federal government, especially when it comes to public safety. Can't overemphasize the importance of those jobs. Sure.
So just follow up on her question before. President Trump is holding China accountable on fentanyl by ramping up tariffs. So how is President Trump planning?
All right, let me see if I can pull up my AI here, if it's still listening to me. Say, hey, you still listening there? Got to reload it. It's not listening to me. Hang on a second. On the Obama question. All right, got you here. Would you mind giving a brief synopsis of Barack Obama's work history and background from post-college through his election as president?
Sure thing. After college, Barack Obama worked as a community organizer in Chicago, then studied law at Harvard, where he became the first black president of the Harvard Law Review. Post-graduation, he practiced as a civil rights attorney and taught constitutional law. Obama then served in the Illinois State Senate before being elected to the U.S. Senate in 2004. His path to the presidency began there.
Thank you for that. During his tenure as a civil rights attorney, were there any major accomplishments of note?
Obama worked on a range of cases, including voting rights and employment discrimination, helping to secure more equitable treatment for underrepresented communities. One notable case involved a successful lawsuit against redlining by several banks in Illinois, which had discriminated against minority neighborhoods.
Was it notably Citibank?
Yes, it was the case of Bykix Robertson v. Citibank Federal Savings Bank. Obama was part of the legal team that fought against discriminatory lending practices in Chicago. The case was a victory for fair housing advocates.
Okay, so now, here's one more question. Let me see if it'll give me an accurate answer. Okay, what was the outcome or settlement in that case for the class action?
The case was settled with an agreement that required Citibank to make loans available to qualified applicants in minority neighborhoods. It was a significant step towards addressing redlining and promoting fair lending practices.
Was there any monetary repercussions for Citibank?
The settlement included monetary damages for the plaintiffs, though the specific financial terms weren't publicly disclosed. The focus was on reforming lending practices to prevent future discrimination.
Would you mind taking a look at Wikipedia? They're outlined there.
The Bykix Robertson v. Citibank Federal Savings Bank case resulted in a settlement agreement. While the specific financial terms were not publicly disclosed, the agreement focused on ensuring fair lending practices to prevent future discriminatory actions.
Sorry for all the coughing, you guys. Anyway, the settlement was for attorney's fees, just under $1 million. So that was the biggest case that he settled. He did not, the analyst for Business International Corp. I don't recall that, and the AI didn't pick that one up either. So basically, college, civil rights attorney where he was an associate, was on a few of these cases. He wasn't the lead attorney by any stretch. I mean, when you're doing a big case like that, you don't have a new associate come in and lead it, right? But still, he contributed towards those. Community organizer, state senator, president. So where there was any real demonstration of leadership to become president, I don't see any indicators of that. It was all potential and his capacity to communicate and to bring people together. So there's something else to it. I'm not saying he wasn't a good selection or he wasn't able to execute the job. All I'm trying to say is there's different indicators out there. What those are, I couldn't tell you, right? But there's different indicators to look for. So when Hegseth is being questioned by Congress and they say, you've never led an agency with over 1 million people. Well, who has? There's literally like a handful of people on the planet that have, All right, let's get back to Karoline.
I haven't spoken to the president about the COVID origins specifically in regards to any actions he may or may not take when it comes to China. But as I have previewed quite a few times today, he will be implementing a 10% tariff on China tomorrow. Sure. Hi.
Has the president made up his mind about a timeline for tariffs on the EU?
No, he has not.
And will it be a one-size-fit-all, or will it be differentiated among governments?
I won't get ahead of the president on tariffs when it comes to the European Union. What I can tell you, again, is that the president will be implementing 25% on Canada, 25% on Mexico, 10% on China tomorrow for the reasons that I have repeatedly laid out in this briefing. Newsmax, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you so much.
No, the gentleman behind you.
James Rosen.
Yes, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Two quick questions on foreign policy, and then one very long and tedious and ponderous Rosen question thereafter. First, on Iran, we've heard very little about the president's forthcoming Iran policy besides his determination to prevent that nation from achieving a nuclear weapons capability. Is it the president's objective, short of the use of U.S. military force, to use the broad array of his powers to try to hasten the end of the Iranian regime?
I think the president has actually made his position on Iran very clear, and he made that clear when there were the negotiations about the ceasefire, which we know obviously is now in place, and the deadline on that ceasefire has continued. He said that Hamas and Iranian-backed terrorists would have hell to pay if that ceasefire didn't move forward, and then quickly thereafter it did. I also do have news on the hostage front, which I'm very surprised nobody asked about this because it is big news story, and the White House applauds the release of 8 additional hostages from Hamas captivity, thanks to the ceasefire deal secured by President Trump. 3 Israeli and 5 Thai nationals are being reunited with their families and their loved ones after being held in unspeakable conditions for over 15 months. And the president remains committed to the release of all remaining hostages, and they should have never been taken by the brutal terrorist group Hamas in the first place. And I think President Trump's working meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister next week emphasizes his continued support for Israel and ensuring that brutal terrorists in that region have hell to pay. Sure.
Can I just finish the other 2 questions?
Sure.
I know you want the long, ponderous Rosen one. But first, on the Grinnell trip, as you know, under the previous administration, the U.S. recognized the opposition candidate in last year's elections, Edmundo Gonzalez, now exiled, as the legitimate president of Venezuela.
Yeah, I appreciate the follows, guys. Hey, listen, Chad, Matter, if you guys want to click in on the guest call-in link, I can get you guys both up here, and I think I can get you both up here at the same time. But you kind of voice your thoughts and opinions at the same time. Holy cow! Who is that lady in the middle of the screen? My lord! See the guy giving her a side eye. So what is going on in this press room? My goodness! Like who is this right here? I think you can see my mouse. Who's that? And then look at this side eye. He just noticed her. He's like, who have I been sitting next to this whole time? My lord. What is going on, people? What is going on in this press room? My goodness.
The president's dispatching of Ambassador Grinnell to negotiate directly with President Maduro today mean that the U.S. now officially recognizes President Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela?
Absolutely not. As I made it very clear, former ambassador and now special envoy Rick Grinnell is going to Venezuela with 2 very clear directives. Make sure that Tren de Aragua members, of which there are 400 currently in custody, are repatriated back to Venezuela, and that all United States detainees return home. Thank you very much, guys.
Just on the president's use of language in this room yesterday,
sure.
And without seeking to cast myself as some kind of moral exemplar because it's rather late in the day to try. Nonetheless, this was an event yesterday that began with a moment of silence for the victims of the air crash and the president's own invocation of, quote, a loving God. And then he uncorked that expletive to insult a former cabinet officer. It was the same expletive that I saw him use in the East Room in 2020 when he failed.
If you guys didn't see it the first time, she's back in the screen. I'm going to cough here, but she's back on screen. My Lord have mercy. Here, let me get another zoom out here because the dude's still side-eyeing her. Lord have mercy.
Famously held up the Trump acquitted headline. My question is, if you could shed any light for us on how the president perceives his use of public profanity, which is a practice that certainly sets him apart from all of his predecessors. Does he regard it as an effective communications device, part of his appeal, or is it something that he lapses into inadvertently, perhaps in times of frustration and later regrets?
I think one of the things that the American people love most about this president is that he often says what they are thinking, but sometimes lack the courage to say themselves. And I think yesterday at this podium, you heard President Trump express great frustration, perhaps even anger, with the previous administration's policies, many of which have led to the crises that our country is currently facing and that this president is focused on fixing. Thank you guys very much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Another outstanding press briefing and performance. Let's get another poll up here. So looks like my next video will be on the tariff breakdown. More details to be coming out tomorrow. We'll look at the tariff briefing. Let me get this poll ended. Best press secretary. Is it KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki, or are we going to have Karoline Vanette? Is that right? Levitt. Why did I think it was? Oh my gosh! It's like, what is it now? I think I spelled Psaki right. All right. What do you guys think? Who wins the best press secretary of recent history? The last three that we've had. Psaki, KJP, or Karoline. I don't know. We shall see how that goes. So anyway, saw a lot of good stuff come out of that session, reinforcing the president's positions and not overly speculating. It kind of speaks to, I do have conversations with the president. I do know what's going on. Not being negative towards Karine. It's more a reality of she did not have access to the president. Where was Joe? Like, she did not speak to him on a daily basis, not because of her own doing, because she did have a lot of experience in, to take that role on. It was more so that he was just, his best hours of operation were 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. as she had noted on multiple occasions, and that may not have included her in that mix. Anyway, looks like it's universal, just a few votes, but Karoline's running away with this one. Anyone want to jump in real quick for a guest call? Guest callers. Well, almost 65,000 folks have ran through here, and I appreciate that very much. I think that barring any guest callers that want to jump in, I may just call it an evening. We're almost, we're over the 3-hour mark. I didn't want to go over 3. But I appreciate you guys. Ding, matter, dong. What? What's going on? All right. I don't know. We're going to call it a evening. I appreciate you guys joining in. Like and subscribe. Almost at 16,000. Here, let me show you. This is awesome. I really appreciate it. This will help me get into that White House briefing room. I just need 5 more. We'll be at 16.9. 17 is just right around the corner, which then means, hey, Neon, what's going on? Which at that point means 100K is next, right around the corner. Oh, got one more. Holy cow. Can we get 4 more here? Just a minute. I don't know. I don't know. Will it work? I don't know. Is it going to happen? Maybe not. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in here with me. More to come tomorrow. And we'll focus in on the beneficiaries and analysis of the tariffs, which, short story, we will be the beneficiary. Holy cow, we just jumped like 3 right there. Got one more. We got one more. I just need one more. This is the funny thing. You announce like you're, kind of winding down the stream, and you drop from like 700. Oh, we rolled back. This isn't Walmart. Let's not roll back the prices, guys. Come on. You announce that you're closing out the stream, and you'll drop from like, 500-600 concurrent. I'm down to about 230 right now. Okay, 99. Oh, wow. Amazing. That's the way to end the stream. Thank you so much, people. I appreciate you very much. 9:01. Oh man, we're on a roll. Working on things, getting ideas. If you guys have ideas on community-based activities or things that we can kind of do, check out my bio. I've got my email in there, contacts. You could send me messages on X platform, DMs there. I'm actually locked out on Instagram. You believe that? They locked me out. Like, holy cow. Whoa, holy cow, we're on a roll here. Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh, it's nonstop. What the heck? This is like rolling. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. But anyway, if you got ideas, because everyone says like, oh, like start up a Discord, but honestly, I don't know. What do I do with the Discord? We have good chat here. Should the chat perpetuate into the Discord? I don't know. Help me out with that, guys. What would be of value to you? Because that's, to me, the important part. I don't want to create a lot of empty things, right, that are out there. So politicalcow.com, all the stuff that you've seen. Am I showing the right screen here? No, I'm showing the other screen. Let me go back to, and again, I appreciate the follows. Let me exit the full screen mode. So what you're looking at here, let's make it bigger. Why is it not? Why is it small? I don't know why it's small. All right. Well, anyway, politicalcow.com website. I published stream notes here. See episode 43, which is this one. See prior stream notes in there as well. If there's video content or other things, if I have statistics or data, I'll publish it in here. Check out the first video, though, on the former president of Kenya. Very interesting remarks that helped kick things off. Neon says, I like the horizontal. I'm working on that. I actually need to get some new hardware. I was looking to simulcast the vertical and horizontal formats at the same time, and I just need to get some new hardware. My computer's not able to keep up. I'm streaming to 5 different platforms, and for the YouTube, which is probably the best platform out there, wanted to do a horizontal and vertical format, just because a lot of folks that consume it on phones, it's much easier vertical for them. Anyway, I'm working on that. Definitely one of the top things on my list. I appreciate the input on that, Neon. Anyway, politicalcow.com, go check it out. All the stream notes are there from this and past live streams. Sometimes when we have breaking events, there may not be a corresponding one, but you got Gavin Newsom here drinking his water bottle while everything's breaking loose behind him. A lot of good stuff going on there. So give me feedback. Just what makes sense from a community standpoint that you guys would think be of value. I don't want to just start a Discord because other people do it. Yeah, we'll see. And the guest call-ins too. If there's a way we can kind of encourage more discussion on that front. I've only had a couple of people want to jump in on that. They do more of that on the TikTok. I don't know if it's just an accessibility thing or not, but I've got should be pretty easy. You just click through and it puts you in the queue right away. There's not a lot of configuration required. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Calling it an evening now. Take care of yourselves. We'll
darkness falls, truth emerges, political cow unveils the lies. Behind the screen, wisdom surges, lighting up hate with her eyes. In the shadows, secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, why? Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception. prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. And her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, vanishing night. Every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing light. Collide, political call, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, vanishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Political call, political call. Truth ascends, the world watches, mesmerized. Political cows